Put the children to bed. It's time for Dan and Aldo to bare their souls.
I love the Chicago Bears more than I do masturbating, and that is a lot.
Then, with 3 seconds left, Bob Avellini throws a 30-something yard touchdown pass to Greg Latta, and the Bears win, and I literally shit my pants. I swear to God, I literally did.
Eric Kramer, for me, I love the guy. He's a tragic figure. I mean, he embodies all that is.
If they don't run the ball here, I'm going to vomit. I swear to God.
Look, I don't mean any disrespect. He just didn't play that well. Not for a guy of his caliber.
You know, they won, but I'm going to be miserable all week because they stunk.
I don't really have any recollection of that at all, but I guess perhaps I blacked it all out.
So, Dan, tape is the ultimate tool for scouts and for coaches to evaluate players, to detect plays and so forth. And they spend hours looking at tape, right? Why do they so often get shit wrong?
I love the efficiency of bourbon.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dan and Aldo.
Oh, yeah. Dan McGuire, how are ya?
I'm well. It's so good to hear that old theme music. We haven't heard that since the different opening of the new show. So this is our first like throwback show, and I have to admit, that jingle, that song right there, made me fucking smile, man.
It is a catchy little tune and captures.
Yeah, and then to hear the masturbating joke. The masturbating joke. Yeah, it's like, yes. I said that for 3 years, and it's back. Finally.
You still feel that way, by the way?
I do love the Bears, man. That's what I was telling you before we got on air. That's one of the things, like, I'm a straight up fan. I'm not the guy that's going to tell you, well, I know who should start and I'm smarter than you and I know everything. I don't know shit. I'm just the guy that watches the games and loves it. And I shouldn't be coaching. I should be the guy in the stands yelling about something I'm pissed off about, but not a coach. I'm just a guy, you know?
Yeah. You know, and that's, we were talking about this briefly. That's the one of the dynamics of being a fan is, you know, most of us fans want to make the decisions. We want to create the roster. We want to call the play. We want to set up the lineup in baseball. We want to, you know, decide who's going to be the starter at tight end. You know, all those things are what makes us fans. But at the same time, you know, guys like me and you, we admit, hey, we're not the experts here. We're just fucking fans. We're like, you know, fantasizing sometimes, and maybe me more than you, Dan, fantasizing about making the decisions, not fantasizing about sex, because I know you do plenty of that.
Yeah. I always fantasize. I love women.
How is the sex life going nowadays? You want to talk about that since we promoted it in the open?
I was told recently that how was it worded to me again? I didn't have enough money to date.
Oh, stuff is a little tight at the Aguirre household. And
I mean, I don't know if that's a fair way to look at it. But if you think about it real quickly, I spent $1,500 getting my Jeep going again. I just paid, $600 ish, whatever, for a root canal. My cat had surgery. That was $850. I had to take him back to the vet today. I mean, it's just like I'm hemorrhaging money. So I don't have as much disposable income. Oh, and my heat pump went out. I don't have any fucking heat. Now they got the emergency heat going again. But literally, I'm having to get a new heat pump. So I mean, I don't have enough money to go fucking spend on a dinner or something right now because it's going elsewhere for adult things.
Yeah,
But that's going to be evened out eventually, at least I hope.
you better be.
I don't know if that's fair to say, well, you don't have enough money to date. So,
Yeah, that is kind of a weird thing. Might have been, your dick was too big and you were hurting her or something like that.
well, let's be honest now. I don't think that's ever been a problem.
Hammer says adulting sucks. Yeah, once you get into being an adult, it really brings a lot of stress into your life. I remember being a teenager and thinking, man, being an adult must be so fucking easy, and it's not.
Yeah, the coolest thing is as a teenager, like 13, 14, it's like, man, I'm starting to sleep with girls, man. I can't wait till like I can be old enough to stay all night with them and sleep all night. That'll be the coolest thing. And now I usually want them to leave. No, I'm just kidding. But that's the thing. Like I always romanticized about like just watching movies with women and hearing their opinions and not having constraints, even if it wasn't about just dirty stuff. Because especially when you're that young, you want it to be about dirty stuff. But I always love to talk to women, just hear what they say, what they feel, how they think, even if it's not really if it doesn't have to agree with me. You know what I mean? Like if they like a completely different kind of movie that I do, it's still interesting to hear them talk about it. I just love ladies.
Yeah, I'm with you. Would you rather, if you had a choice, hey, you can hang out tonight with 3 buddies, 3 male buddies, or you can hang out tonight with 3 female buddies, which would you choose?
Probably women, even if it was platonic, because usually, like if you, like I told you, it's like, man, my cat had surgery, and I was really worried about him because again, he's going to be 11. If I tell a guy this, he's going to look at me like I'm a fucking idiot. But a woman, has compassion and has empathy and can understand and relate, even if they don't have a cat. They never had a cat. Maybe they had a kid that was sick or a dog or, women can make you feel like, you're not alone in this world. Most of the time, the guy will just look at you like you're a fool.
Yeah, that's true. Cliff says if it's sex, then he wants to hang out with the 3 women. Good call, Cliff. I'm with you on that one.
Now, I will say the last time I was with you was a great, great weekend. Like I said, we watched those old football stuff. We went to the Bears game on Sunday. Just hung out, man, and did a couple podcasts that weekend. That was one of the best weekends I've ever had, man. Legitimately. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, that was a blast for me too. And we cut the new open, or we recorded the new open together. And we sort of did it by the fly of our pants, but it turned out really good. I mean, your reading and your scripting on that open was fantastic. And then I put the animated comic effect to it with the new music, and it turned out good. You and I do good work together, I've been told. So, and Mr. Shorty and a number of other people in the chat room saying it's good to see the 2 of you guys together again. And yeah, when we developed the Bear Their Soul show, Dan and I said to each other, well, we're still going to do some specials when there's an open night on the schedule. We'll get together, do a show, and sometimes it'll be about football, sometimes it'll be about movies, sometimes it'll be about life, and other times it'll be about all those things and maybe more. So that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to talk some Chicago Bears. We're going to talk some movies, and we're going to talk life and have fun for the next 2 hours. So thank you all for being here. We got 40 people already in the chat, and room for plenty more. Dan, I want to start with you regarding the football conversation, because last week I was unable to do Bear Their Souls. And so I wanted to get from you your thoughts on the big trade of trading the number 1 overall pick, acquiring DJ Moore, the wide receiver, and a number of other draft picks. Are you happy with that trade?
I am. And in subsequent reporting, it's come out that they basically wanted 2 firsts and 2 seconds, I think, from Las Vegas. And Carolina was allegedly going to offer another number 1, but the Bears pulled the trigger wanting DJ Moore, no pun intended, more than another number one pick. So that's interesting to me. And again, in subsequent reporting, it was revealed that Poles said that, hey, the DJ Moore aspect of this trade is what made me, I'm paraphrasing, but what made him pull the proverbial trigger. Mm-hmm. So I like it. You would think, barring injury, I mean, you saw the guys together at Chicago, well, I was about to say Chicago Stadium, but United Center, right? Is that where they were?
Yes.
Yeah, all together. So you got Mooney, you got Claypool. I know a lot of people are down on Claypool, but he was only there half a season and the team was in kind of chaos. And so I don't know if it's fair to say he wasn't a good trade. In fact, I think it isn't fair to say that. So I think the best is yet to come for him. And he's playing for a contract. Mooney's playing for a contract. And now you've got a bona fide, at least 1B kind of receiver. Like if Allen Robinson was a number one receiver, I think he's way better than Allen Robinson. I'm not trying to besmirch Allen, but I think he's better than Allen. So I think he's the best receiver we've had in quite some time. Yeah. Since Brandon Marshall.
Yeah. One of the things that I read in Pro Football Focus I wanted to share with you and the gang in the chat is they wrote this about Justin Fields. Among 32 quarterbacks with at least 50 intermediate pass attempts, those are passes thrown between 10 and 19 yards downfield. In 2022, Fields led the way with a 67.7 completion rate and ranked 13th in accuracy percentage. However, he didn't attack there often enough, partly due to his pass catchers. This according to PFF. Now, from 2019 to the end of last season, DJ Moore saw 172 intermediate targets, the second most in the NFL. And wow. I put that on there because I really believe that this DJ Moore trade is going to be so good for Justin Fields. It is really going to help his development as a quarterback. And I'm excited that now Fields' passing arsenal has this guy. Luke Getzey, I think what last year said, we did a study on what second-year quarterbacks need the most, and they need a reliable target, a reliable guy on 3rd down and 7, a reliable receiver on whatever situation. You need a big first down. Well, he's got that now in DJ Moore, a proven guy who can create separation, can get open, has got good hands, and I'm fucking super excited about this trade. And as you said, Poles demanded that Moore be in this trade, and I think that was a good deal. He is, in essence, a first-round pick. So really excited about this.
Yeah, and just to compare it, I think you and I or anyone that follows the NFC North probably thought higher of Diggs than maybe some of the other people, but I was seeing comparisons to when Josh Allen got Diggs from the Vikings, that allegedly no one knew if Diggs was a number one, maybe he was a 1B, 1C or something, and then it helped him grow exponentially. And Diggs showed that he was, a baller, but I always thought he was anyway. But what I'm saying is no one knew that, or at least the jury wasn't out saying he was a consensus number one, the way maybe some people doubt DJ Moore is the overall number one. So maybe number two helps number one make that big step that Josh Allen made in Buffalo. Maybe not as big, but the one thing, like you just said, Justin did well throwing the ball downfield, but he didn't throw it that much. And he struggled in the short passing game. And if he could get those, he can throw the deep ball, but if he can get that short passing game consistently solved, then he could be a complete, just an enormous talent. He could be a complete MVP candidate. People said that about Mitch. We hoped it was true, and it turned out to be just absolutely bullshit. It was nowhere near true, but they could be for Fields,
I totally agree. In reading a lot of the social media comments about Ryan Poles, I thought that there was a lot of negative comments about Poles, not spending on this guy, not spending on that guy, leaving quality players, letting them get away to other teams and so forth. And so I ran a poll asking Bears fans, what do you think about Ryan Poles' work so far? And in an overwhelming percentage, 72% thought he was doing an excellent job. And only like, I didn't make a graphic of the poll, but I think it was like 5 to 10% were angry at him because he failed to pick up guys like Orlando Brown, not knowing that Orlando Brown is just not a scheme fit. He's a pretty good tackle, although his, a couple of the reasons why he's into his third team have to do with the fact that he's not that great of a pass blocker. He's not that great of an athlete. And so he's got to be with the right team. The Chiefs clearly thought, yeah, we brought him in as a stopgap, but he's not as athletic as this offense needs. And Poles was thinking the same way. I'm not going to spend 80, or I think he got like $50 million guaranteed. I'm not going to spend $50 million guaranteed on a guy who is not athletic to run the type of scheme that we do. So I'll ask you, if you had the choice between Poles is doing an excellent job, Poles is doing a good job, but there have been some mishaps, and Poles is doing a terrible job, which would you choose?
I definitely wouldn't say terrible, but I still think it's too soon. Like thus far in free agency, I think all of us should be excited we've got 10 picks and the free agency's already signed, and he's still, fourth in the league in cap space at this point.
Right.
I think we should be excited, but the offensive line does still worry me. I've heard people suggesting now that Cody's going to go back to center. I guess Mustafa wasn't given a deal, so he more than likely is gone. Thank God. But, maybe Lucas Patrick ends up being the starter. I don't know. Maybe they draft a center. But to me, saying that Whitehair is going to be the starter bothers me. Look, Cody's been with us a long time. I appreciate his service. He's usually hurt, and he's usually not that effective at this point. So if they're planning on counting on Cody Whitehair, that bothers me. I like Tevin Jenkins. I like the fact he's overcome adversity and all of that. And I'm rooting for him, but he's hurt a lot. He's banged up a lot. And so we signed a new left guard. Our left tackle's got promise. We need help at right tackle. I still think when he was brought here, the thought was he was a lineman. He's going to rebuild the offensive line. And we still need to see that. And that's the big glaring hole, but he can solve that in the draft, right? So we got to get some lineman help. Like, even if you've got good receivers, if Justin doesn't have time, it's going to blow everything up.
Yep. And Mustafa is indeed gone. They did not. He's a free agent now. That's
what I'm saying. I don't think they would re-sign him. I would hope.
Yeah, right. His brother PJ Mustafa, an interior defensive lineman, he might come in and replace Mustafa on the team. That'll be an interesting thing to watch during the draft because he was at the East-West Shrine game, and both Danny Shimon and Greg Gabriel, who were there, thought that he played really well, and so he's a scheme fit. So it'd be interesting to see if PJ Mustafa makes it to the Chicago Bears somehow.
He would make Sam look like Casey Urlacher to Brian Urlacher, I think. The other Mustafa would be Brian in this scenario.
Jordan writes, my only issue with Poles thus far is being a bit too safe or reticent to hand out what I feel are conservative deals. But hey, that's just a number. No telling the person receiving that deal. Yeah, it's hard, Jordan, as you know. We don't know how the negotiations are going. We don't know if there was ever a call made, or the hierarchy, the brain trust by the Bears decided we're not even going to talk to Orlando Brown's agent, or we're not going to talk. I think Jordan today on Twitter was lamenting that Poles didn't go after Chauncey Gardner-Johnson.
He went to Detroit.
He went to the Lions, right?
Yeah.
And so I wonder if the Bears even inquired about him, just simply because that particular player has had some locker room issues, some issues. He's moved around from team to team. And so there's something going on there with that guy's character. He signs a one-year contract with the Lions. I don't know if he's the most trusted guy to have on your team.
That's what I was. Yeah, I mean, like, he's obviously had two issues with the Bears, and with the regular season punch, and then the playoff punch between Wims and Anthony. No, not Anthony Miller. Yeah, Anthony Miller in the playoff game. But Yeah, to only get 1 year, I think it was 8 million. That kind of shocked me that he only got a 1 year deal. Like that's the best he could get. So yeah, obviously it wasn't just the Bears, to use Jordan's word, that were reticent about signing Mr. Gardner Johnson. Yeah, I hate to see him go to Detroit because you get the feeling that Detroit is going to be better than people think. Although every year it seems like the ESPN always predicts them to do well, and they usually don't. But if Rodgers really does get traded to the Jets, Minnesota's lost a lot of people in this offseason. I can see Detroit being like, the team that wins the North for real. If it's not the Bears, of course.
I really do too. I mean, they have an outstanding roster. And I should say they have a very good roster. And by the end of this draft, they could have an outstanding roster. They got a lot of draft picks. They got some high draft picks. This Jared Goff trade worked out for them so fucking well because they brought all this draft capital, and now they don't necessarily need a quarterback because Goff has proven that he can run that offense and he can do it well. Now, if they want to pick up a quarterback, developmental quarterback, yeah, but who knows what they'll do, but they're in a good position to build an NFC championship team for 2023.
And Goff's is still he's late 20s, I would say. He's still relatively young. He's led a team to a Super Bowl. I mean, if you're Jared Goff, you're like, dude, like I've thrown for 500 yards in the game. I've led a team to a Super Bowl. Like I'm okay. Like, and he's still young. I mean, yeah, I don't think he's a bad player at all. He won that big game in Lambeau, which could arguably be Rodgers' final game there, and eliminated them from the postseason. I mean, yeah, I think Detroit should feel happy about what they have right now.
Yeah. T3P podcast says, Lions don't scare me. I hope you're right, T3P. The one knock I have about the Detroit Lions is that they're the Detroit Lions. They always figure out a way to fuck things up. And so I think if they had, Tom Brady at his prime, they would not have won Super Bowls, just because there's something about that franchise that has just been insufferable. I mean, they just screw shit up. And I'll never forget, Wayne Fontes smoking
the cigar.
Toking on that big cigar like it was a big dick and shit, and just giving it to the Bears fans and Mike Ditka. So maybe that's clouded my opinion about the Lions in that franchise, but they really, the results basically back me up. When was the last time they won an NFL championship?
The last time they won a playoff game, 1957. Well, I want to challenge anyone to go back in our archives, which are available wherever you get your podcasts. When we had Eric Kramer on, which was a phenomenal interview, talking about his personal issues, shooting himself and Edward Norton in it, and not dying like on Fight Club, and overcoming all that, and that woman stealing from him. But one of the things I asked, because the first half of that interview was all football, and Eric was so sharp, but I brought up that 1991 thing with Wayne Fontes, Week 17, when we were in San Francisco. If you're younger and you don't remember, the Bears it was a Monday night football game, the last game of the regular season. If the Bears win, they win the division and get a bye. If they lose, Detroit wins the division. And the reason why, in case you've forgotten, is Buffalo set their fucking starters. Detroit won in Buffalo, but Thurman Thomas didn't play and Jim Kelly didn't play. So they didn't even try, and Detroit still barely won. But so that night, the Bears get killed in San Francisco, 52-14, and Wayne Fontes is smoking his cigar and celebrating on TV and rubbing it in their face. But I made that point to Eric Kramer and suggested, because I said, hey, I talked to Tom Waddle and told him I thought that the Bears would beat you all if they'd have beaten Dallas, and went up there. And he said he agreed too, because that cigar was too much. He thought that rubbing it in, that it worried him that the Bears would be fired up and beat them if they played. Eric Kramer even said that.
Yep, he sure effing did. Yeah, that was a great interview. We need to invite him back, because I'm sure he's got a lot of thoughts on Justin Fields and what the Chicago Bears are doing. I want to segue here a bit to something that I've been doing. So I took it upon myself to, we all talk about, well, we should get rid of this player, we should get rid of that player, and so forth. But it's easy to say that without kind of thinking about, well, who do we replace him with?
I've got one I would get rid of already that you'll disagree with.
Okay.
It's for your point to say that it sounds good to say that, and I'll agree with you. Yeah, it's irresponsible to say that. But the player I would say I hope's not back is Justin Jones.
Oh, really?
I just felt like he sucked every time I was watching him. I don't think I saw him do shit all year. Maybe he had a sack here or there, but like when he was wearing the captain logo, I'm like, this guy's doing nothing. Of course, he became a captain after some, the Roquan and Robert Quinn trades. But to me, that's the guy I'm like, please don't let him start next season. But tell me why I'm wrong on this one.
So let me just say this regarding that, and it was actually a topic that I had for tonight. So let's talk about it now. I suspected that Ryan Poles was going to tank 2022, and when I started suspecting that was the trade of Khalil Mack. Okay, it makes sense to pick up a draft pick, but if you really thought you were going to win in 2023 or 2022, why not keep him around and make him a pass rush specialist? And then he signed Larry Ogunjobi, and then I said to myself, wow, he's really trying to build a solid winning team. Because this is a win now player at the prime of his career. Then that didn't happen. Then the season rolls along. I think that they saw who they acquired, these one-year contracts. And as the season rolled along and they traded Robert Quinn, that's around the time Ryan Poles said, let's tank. And I'm not telling my coaching staff, go out there and lose the game. I'm giving the coaching staff nothing to work with.
Right.
And that's a way of tanking. I'm not telling my staff, I'm not telling them what I'm doing here. The morale would go down straight to hell. There's no way.
I still think the coaches were in on it though. Because of the game we were at with Nathan Peterman.
Exactly.
But go ahead with your point. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's a perfect point, because maybe there was a change of tone in Eberflus's press conference, like after the 5th consecutive loss. I don't remember exactly, but I do think that he either knew, we got a fucking bad team, or he had a talk with Poles, and then Poles said, I know we got a bad team, and frankly, I don't give a shit because we're loading up for a fucking fantastic offseason. Or maybe he even told Eberflus that in his interview, because one of the things they talked about openly over and over again, I'm not afraid to play rookies, which meant, they're going to bring in a lot of fucking new faces here. So the tank was in. They had no expectation of going to the playoffs. They knew they were loading up for 2023. So I wanted to get your take on that.
Well, I mean, you mean in terms of real time or in hindsight?
Do you think that in real time, Poles either before the season started or during the season said, let's go, tank it, baby, tank it? And
I don't think so from the beginning, because if you recall, they were 2-1, and I honestly believe when they beat New England, he made that trade for Chase Claypool as a way of saying, okay, or you beat the Patriots, let's go. Mm-hmm. And then Roquan had that game in Dallas where he just kind of stood around and the defense gave up 40-some points, and he was just like, man, fuck this guy. He's like constantly talking shit, going to the media over me, saying, you remember when he was like trying to get a trade earlier in the summer, and it's like he's representing, he's just a guy, it's a thorn in my ass, and he's half-assing. So I think and he's complaining about the Robert Quinn trade, and so I think when they traded Roquan, maybe that was the beginning of, you know what? Fuck it. Let's try to get a better trade. That's my opinion. I think had Roquan played hard and they had beaten Dallas and, suddenly we're 4-5 or whatever, I think, and they almost beat Miami. If they get into it there, they probably don't sell off everybody,
Mm-hmm. Herber says that he read an article today saying that Poles had a plan and told the coaches, and they were on board and knew that it would be tough. Yeah, I agree. I don't think that the word tank ever came up, but it was sort of an understanding. We're not building a team to win in 2022. We're building a foundation to start the winning ways in 2023. Did I say 2023 before? I meant 2022. We're not building a winning team, and we're building a foundation for 2023. So, so now this is the critical year. This whole season is really Ryan Poles' legacy with the Chicago Bears. He has got to field a team that looks promising. He's made the decision to stick with Justin Fields, which I think we all agree is the right decision. You should not walk away from the young guy. Yeah. How much would that have hurt you if they would have said, yeah, we're moving on from Justin Fields? In fact,
that
we just traded him.
That would have really bothered me because, like I said, I'm not saying that just because it sounds good. I honestly believe this guy would have gone somewhere else and made the Pro Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly would have been balling somewhere else, and I would have had envy. He would have been like your ex-girlfriend that you just you had the best sex with, the best conversation with, and yet she's married to another guy, and you're like, how did that happen? That's who I wanted, that kind of thing. I didn't want him to be the ex that I'm like thinking of. I want him to be my current quarterback. And I think, man, just that run against Phil. I know it's a run and play, and we want to see big passing plays. With that run against the Eagles, where he like avoids a sack from two people, and then in the end, after like 50 yards, does a spin move to juke two more people and score. That was unfucking believable. That's some shit you would see like Bo do on Tecmo Super Bowl.
That's right.
Like not even real, just incredible. Like Bo Jackson shit on a video game.
Yeah. I did you play Tecmo?
I played Tecmo Bowl a little bit, but Tecmo Super Bowl, I played the shit out of it. The second one, the guy, they had like it looked like Mark Bavaro on the cover, but it's when the Giants had beaten Buffalo, so it was a fake giant on the front. He sort of looked like Bavaro, and it had all the teams on it. The original Tecmo Bowl didn't have all the teams, but it did at least have Jim McMahon and Willie Gault as Bears, and Walter for that matter.
Yeah, I never played it, and I regret never having, because so many people talk about it, and it was such a great game. It was so addictive. The Tecmo football, and I think there was a Tecmo hockey game too. Where
I don't play. I don't know the rules to hockey.
Hockey is a fun video game to play. Okay, so here, let me get back to what I was talking about here. So people in the chat room, please play along with me. So what I've done is I've looked at the Bears' current roster as the website has it now for all of the position groups. But after I did that, I also went to PFF and I did my own mock draft and looked at the money that's available. So what I want to do is build the team that is going to run out of the tunnel in the game 1 of 2023. So here's the current defensive line group, and boy, is it fucking wretched. I mean, if it wasn't for the two recent acquisitions, DeMarcus Walker and Andrew Billings, this would be, this defensive line was illegal to have. You didn't have any starters. So Gibson and Robinson at the right defensive end. DeMarcus Walker is slated to play the left defensive end. Some people think he could play the 3 tech. We'll see. At defensive tackle, Andrew Billings, a good acquisition. Even though it's a 1-year contract, this guy could play his way into a longer-term contract. We'll see what happens. And the 3 tech, Justin Jones last season, but he really did play up and down the line, which I think, Dan, is part of the reason why he didn't impress you, is because he was a veteran who is a smart player, could play and quickly learn all the different nuances of every position in the defensive line. So he never settled into one position. So there is no way to fix this defensive line with just the draft. And so you have to sign some free agents. And so it is fucking imperative that they sign Yannick and Duke and you know how to pronounce his name, Dan?
No. He reminds me of the old place kicker that Tampa had named Donald Igwe, I think it's.
Oh, I remember him. Yeah.
Yeah, he was from Nigeria.
Yeah, well, this guy is a kick-ass defensive lineman pass rusher. The big knock on him is that he's really bad against the run, which is why he is now going to be playing for his 4th team in 5 years or something like that. But this guy is a pass rusher, and the Bears desperately need a pass rusher. I think, and I spoke with Greg Gabriel about this today, they're waiting for the market to continue to come down because with each passing day, but I bet you they're in negotiations and they want to bring this guy in. So if you got Nguke and Walker at your defensive end positions and you move in Andrew Billings and on day 3 you draft a guy like Moro, or it should be Ojomo from Texas to play at the interior, and then you have Adetomiwa Adebore, the kid from Northwestern, who was supposed to go in the 3rd round, and now people are saying he's going to go in the 1st round. You move him into the 3 tech, and you got Justin Jones backing him up. Now, all of a sudden, you've got a fucking respectable defensive line group that can help put pass rushers and help the defensive backs, the back 7, create turnovers.
And for a depth piece, again, maybe he didn't play well enough to warrant starting, but I liked Armon Watts, big guy inside. I guess he's a free agent, but maybe you could bring him back at a veteran minimum or something. I like him as a backup, just a big horse to come in there. Like, someone needs to be spelled at some point. The best defensive lines always have great rotations.
Mm-hmm.
Where basically in the 4th quarter, your guy's not gassed. He's the kind of guy that can come in there and stop, get you a big tackle on 3rd and 1,
I totally agree. He is a free agent. If they brought him back, there could definitely be room in this roster for him. The big question here in terms of, the 8 names we're seeing up on the screen is Dominique Robinson, because he does have the potential to be a special pass rusher. If you remember, that's the guy who played college quarterback his first 2 years and then was moved to defense, wide receiver, I think, and then the defense. So he's still learning the position, but he's got athletic traits to become a great defensive end.
He got off to a fast start, it seemed like, last season, off the top of my head, and kind of faded away because we were hoping he was like going to be the next Mark Anderson.
Right. When they traded Quinn.
Yeah.
When they traded Quinn, we were all thinking, all right, great opportunity for Robinson and Gibson, but none of them ever shined. So
Gibson was the most disappointing because he played really, I wouldn't say great football, but when Khalil was hurt in 21, it seemed like he was an up and coming kind of player. Gibson in his spot.
Yes.
Maybe it's just because Quinn was having such a phenomenal year, but he was an invisible man last season.
He really was. But okay, so that's the defensive line. I think we've made some improvements, and I'm not going to die on my sword for Ngukwe or Adebawore. Those names can be interchangeable. You can bring in other guys, but you need somebody who can have that potential impact. You need a defensive end who is going to get you 9, 10, 11 sacks. You need that. You got to have a football team with a sack master. We don't have one right now. And you need that all-important 3 tech. And this kid from Northwestern, Adebawore, he has proven on tape. He played 3 tech on the nickel defense at Northwestern, and at the Senior Bowl, he wowed people playing in the interior of the line. At the combine, he set a fucking record for running the 40-yard dash for defensive linemen. So, or defensive tackles, I think it was. So the guy is an athletic monster, and so
will he be there at 9?
He probably will be. Remember, he started off as a guy that was going to be drafted in the 3rd round. So I think he's going to move into the 1st round, but I don't think he's a top 10 pick because there's still too much projection. Like Jordan said in the chat maybe 10, 15 minutes ago, he didn't see a lot of Adabare's production at Northwestern. There wasn't tons of it because he was playing out of position, frankly. But he's proved that he can play at a high level, which is why he was invited to the Senior Bowl, which is why scouts are in love with him now. He will be there in the middle of the 1st round. And when I did this exercise, I actually traded down from 9 to 12, so that way I can get a high second-round pick and acquire somebody else of need that could be a plug-and-play player. So we'll come to that in a second. So let's move to the linebacker group. I initially thought at first, Dan, that okay, we don't need to do anything with the linebacker group. With Tremaine Edmonds at middle linebacker, I only put him at middle linebacker because he said, I'm a middle linebacker. TJ Edwards says, I'll play wherever they want me to play. So he probably will be the Will, or that's interchangeable. And then Jack Sanborn will be the Sam. The only backup that I see currently on the roster is this kid Sterling Weatherford. Do you remember him at all from last season?
Yeah,
Dan?
it seems like he was on special teams, right?
Yes, exactly. A very good special teams player. This is a guy, Dan, I actually did a lot of work on him last night because frankly, I didn't even know what fucking position he played with the Bears. I know because all I saw was on special teams. I know he played some defensive snaps, but I wasn't quite sure who he was. And so I went back, looked at some of his college tape. This guy was a ball-hawking safety, but he had too big of a frame to play safety in the National Football League. And so at last year's combine, they had him playing at the linebacker position, and then he was signed an undrafted free agent contract. And who was it? He was with I think the Ravens or some team. They were really distraught that the Bears picked him off their practice squad. This guy has a lot of potential, but he's not ready to be a starter. But he could be a good rotational player in the linebacker position. But they still need one more player here, right? Would you agree?
Well, again, of the same thing I was saying about Watts, I'm not necessarily suggesting bringing him back, but maybe at the right price point, Nicholas Morrow could potentially be a good backup. You don't want him starting again, but he did okay. He did okay. I mean, but you don't want him to be your starter. But again, if he's your backup and only gets a couple of, if you don't need him, you know what I'm saying? He's a good backup.
I agree with you.
Backup. You don't want him to start.
We got 3 good starters, though. You would agree, right?
Yeah. Well, you just hope that Sanborn isn't a fluke. And I admit, for so long, God, I hate saying this, but it's like there's always like a guy like that people like. God, I hate saying this, Aldo, but a lot of times it's almost like the gimmick white guy on the team. You know what I mean? Like, oh, here's Bill Winnington. Oh, Bill Winnington with the big fucking dunk. This Bill Winnington had his big dunk. You know what I mean? It's like a joke almost.
Yeah,
and I don't know if he's Bill Winnington or if he's Brian Urlacher. You know what I mean? In the sense that, is he legitimately, or is he just a gimmick flash in the pan? And I think for a lot of the last season, I didn't give him enough credit. But by the time he got hurt, you saw the defense really, really struggled even more without him. And the guy was given that. I should have given him. What I'm trying to say is maybe if he happened to be black, maybe I would have given him more props early on. And I hate to fucking say that. But just because the way he looks, the way he runs, you get this immediate thought of Urlacher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't know if that's fair to Sanborn or even 54. It's not, but I hope he's good. He had a really good year last year when he got a chance to play. I hope he can keep that up, and I'm rooting for him.
I am rooting for him too. I don't think he's got the athletic skills of an Urlacher, but he certainly has the anticipation. In fact, I would argue that he has better anticipation than Brian Urlacher. And so that's
he seemed a little bit more physical too.
Yeah, he loves to hit. He loves to hit. And he's got a really hot girlfriend. So I actually give his taste in women over Urlacher's taste in women.
Well, to be fair to Urlacher, remember he did the first ever game at the New Soldier Field, and he was married at the time, so it was a shock to his wife. But he had Paris Hilton at the game, so
she didn't know.
That was what was reported. Yeah, that's what was reported, that she didn't know he was fucking Paris. That's what was said in 2003.
Paris Hilton shows up on national TV with the number 54 jersey and is looking for the cameras to wave to, and he's married. Oh my goodness. Not even I would do that.
Again, his personal life's none of my business, but he like the image I have of Urlacher, and again, I've been accused of being a hater, and it's because of all the stuff in his personal life later, and I felt like again he really could have helped the team so much if he'd have just like supported Jay at the time of the trade and stuff, instead of he and Bobby Wade calling him a pussy and kind of making the defense not like him and stuff early on, always ripping him. And he was out in 09 the whole season. He was like ripping Cutler to the press. But early on, I did like him. But even so, I could still see Jerome Bettis running over him in Pittsburgh. I see Tom Brady faking him out of his fucking jockstrap in New England. I see Jim Kleinsaucer from Minnesota running over him, and Corey Schlesinger, the fullback from Detroit, running over him. It just felt like unless he had, Ted Washington and Keith Traylor early on up front, and then, Lance beside him later, it just felt like, man, you throw the big fullback at him and he couldn't do anything about it. And he couldn't get off of blocks, and got ran over by fullbacks and Bettis. And
that was his Achilles heel. No, it's a good point because a lot of people don't remember this, and clearly the people in the Hall of Fame voting committee didn't remember it. He could not stop running games that were aiming straight at him. Just run straight at Urlacher. He will miss the tackle. That was the worst thing he was ever bad at. And by the way, Retro says Paris Hilton was just a very close friend. Dan, they were shopping friends.
That's it. That's what it was.
All right. So let's go back to this Bears roster. The cornerbacks, and I'm going to say a name here that I know you hate.
Vildor?
Kendall Vildor. Yeah, you just don't want him gone, right?
Maybe because he's been here a couple years now, and maybe he could be a solid backup. That Blackwell played okay in sparing, whenever he had to come in. I still don't think Jalen Johnson is your unequivocal number one, but having said that, I like having Kyler Gordon as the other guy, not in a slot. I like him on the outside. And I think for Kyler's benefit, now maybe it's better for him to have gotten experience on the nickel and on the outside. But I wish it's almost like with Whitehair or even Kyle Long. Now, okay, just put him in one spot now and let him try to flourish. So I hope that they put Kyler on the outside and Jalen on the outside and get somebody else to run the nickel other than Vildor.
Yes. And by the way, J2K is right. I should have had Jalen Jones's name on there because he played well. When all those injuries started hitting the cornerbacks late in the season, he played very well in place of, I think, of Jalen Johnson. He went in for
and he was an undrafted, wasn't he undrafted?
Yes. That's correct.
For being an undrafted rookie, he certainly did acquit himself well.
He did. And I think, I think they drafted Kyler Gordon to be their slot guy, which is why we saw him play so much slot last year. I also think it was a disservice to him because he had to learn so much of the Bears defense. In addition to that, he was a rookie. He got hurt in preseason camp. So it's hard to learn to put into play what you learned in the classroom about the outside corner position, the slot corner position, the different packages and so forth. It was difficult for him because he couldn't practice it. So there have to be some changes here. And so this is what I'm suggesting. So you got Kyler, you got Kyler and Jalen at the outside cornerbacks. And you draft a guy like DJ Turner in round 3 or round 4 to play the slot. And you also draft Jacorian Bennett, one of the 2 outstanding Maryland cornerbacks, and bring them in. And now you've got depth and you've got a potential replacement for Jalen Johnson if you're going to let him go. If you're going to drop Kendall Vildor, Jacorian Bennett could fill in easily for those guys. He might even be ready to play it in his rookie season. So that's what I think the cornerback room should look like. A couple of new acquisitions.
Do you think Jalen gets a deal in camp or something to extend him? Because he's on his last year.
Yes, that's a great question, Dan. And what I think is happening right now, because somebody put up I think it was Mr. Shorty said that Swifty today said that the Bears still have $35 million to spend. After they spend the $13 million they'll need for their rookie class, they will have $35 million left. And there's a good portion of that they have to spend, because every 3 years they've got to spend the equivalent of 90% of their cap dollars. So they will have money. And so I think they're going to extend some contracts. Darnell Mooney, question mark. Jalen Johnson, question mark. Who else? Cole Kmet, I think, question mark, but maybe more. Yes, definitely. So there.
What about Claypool?
Claypool, another guy that could be, but I wouldn't do it just yet, because he needs a prove it year to me.
Well, Mooney's coming off an injury too. That's enough. You got to see what he's got in camp. I think. I don't know if you would go ahead and extend him now. Is what I'm saying. Komet, again, I was a harsh critic of Komet early on, because he always was falling down and dropping passes. But again, I don't know if he's going to ever be Mike Ditka, but I mean, he's definitely, as good as, say, like Des Clark or somebody like that. That was very good for the Bears for 7-8 years. So maybe you go ahead and get Komet for a good price. I mean, he grew up a Bears fan, like the guy we got from Green Bay in the Illinois area. So maybe you sign these two guys for the next couple of years, and you have two decent tight ends,
Yeah. Well, and the thing about Claypool and Mooney, a good reason not to extend them yet is because you just picked up DJ Moore, and he's the number one receiver. So let the season play out. Let's see how Mooney and Claypool play along with the number one receiver, DJ Moore. And then you either sign them middle of the season if they're playing really fantastic and you can agree on a next contract extension, or you just come back next season with a top draft pick at that other wide receiver position opposite DJ Moore, and then you add on a veteran in camp for your three. But my dream of all dreams would be to get some fucking consistency at some positions. Wouldn't it be great if Moore, Claypool, and Mooney were the three wide receivers for the next 3, 4, 5 years, and we didn't fucking have to worry? Oh.
That's what I always think of Conway and Graham. For 2 years, these, especially the 95, they were just great together. Both of them had right at 1,000 yards, if not both over 1,000.
Right.
And they both came up at the same time, and they just let Graham go. And maybe it didn't feel like a lot at the time, but it really, really hurt the Bears, especially when Kramer got hurt, because they were rocking Michael Timpson. And then Conway's getting double teamed now because Michael Timpson's on the other side, not Jeff Graham. They should have kept Graham, is what I'm saying. And I'll go to my deathbed saying that. I don't want that to be a repeat year.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, man. We've had, Adrian Amos is another guy. Eddie Jackson played his best football when he had Adrian Amos beside him, and we allowed him to go, and then we went through fucking revolving safeties, and Jackson's play went south. When you got a good fucking thing, keep it, particularly if we're talking about a young player, and you're just allowing him to walk, and you allow him to go to the Green Bay Packers. And by the way, Adrian Amos is a free agent right now.
He's talked a lot of shit when he was in Green Bay about the Bears, though. So
he sure did.
Let's say he hurt my feelings a little bit too much to want to bring him back.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But here's the current state of the safety department. Eddie Jackson and Jaquan Brisker. I think we all are pretty much in agreement that Brisker is either going to be a superstar in this league or a very high-level safety, strong safety.
How long is Eddie going to – I mean, Eddie got hurt real late in the season. That Jets game was like week 12, and it looked nasty. Like, when is he supposed to be back running and stuff?
He said that he's scheduled to start running in 2 or 3 weeks. This was an interview last week. I think he was at the Combine, or I forgot. No, he was at some charity event, and he was interviewed. And so he said, the progress is going good with the injuries, rehabilitation. And he was asked if you started running yet. He goes, no, but I'm really looking forward to starting in about 2 weeks. So we will see. But I'm with you on that. I am worried about Eddie Jackson. I'm definitely worried about.
Because he's got to be near 30 now too. Because wasn't he a little bit older when we drafted him too?
You are right. I forgot about that. Let me see. Eddie Jackson age.
I'm guessing
29 years old.
Yeah.
30 in December. Yes. Good
It's
point.
a little bit harder to come back from injuries so devastating. I mean, it's not like Gale Sayers when technology was so behind it failed him. But still, Eddie's going to be 30, and that shit looked nasty when he got hurt.
It did look bad to me. I thought it was like career ending. So
exactly.
I'm glad it doesn't appear that it's career ending, but I am worried about his future with the Bears.
Wasn't Mooney hurt in the same game?
No, I thought, man, was it? I thought it was a week earlier, but maybe you're right.
His looked bad too. His looked bad as well.
Yeah, and I understand this team needing to have the wide receivers block, but I don't agree with having blocking assignments for a guy of his size where he's got to take on fucking big ass defensive linemen and linebackers, which is what happened on that play. That's not fair to this guy. He wasn't fucking born to block guys 100 pounds heavier or 50 pounds heavier. That's bullshit. Let him block a defensive back on plays. So,
I would say I would love to see him get more. I'm not saying that he doesn't have balls or he's not courageous and he's afraid, but I would like to see him get more, like, to use a Bears analogy, more routes like Willie Gault. Like take advantage of his speed and stuff, versus always either throwing the bubble screen, smoke screen to him, or just a short over the middle. He's so small, and he's more like Tariq Cohen body size, and they throw him in there like he's Dennis McKinnon, like, a big guy that's just going to take, or Muhsin Muhammad, that's just like built to take these shots across the middle because he's all rock and muscle and big, but he's not really that big of a guy. Nagy always got him just hit so hard on the routes he was running, man. And I would like to see them play more to his body type, which again, don't have him cross the middle all the time.
Totally with you. All right, so here's how I would change this safety room. So DeAndre Houston Carson is a free agent. Now, the list of free agents that I read, I did some research on some of them, but he, to me, seems like the most reliable guy to bring back. In spot duty, he plays very well. As a special teamer, he's one of the best in the league. So let's bring him back. And then these are three free agents that could be interesting to look at, particularly if Eddie Jackson's rehabilitation doesn't go well. Terrell Edmunds and Adrian Amos are two guys to consider. Edmunds, according to Spotrac, is going to make somewhere in the area of $8 to $9 million a season. He's a fantastic tackler. He will help this defense's ability to stop the run, which was such a huge issue when running backs got out to the secondary last season. It was like, oh my gosh, this guy's going to break it. And the tackling has been bad, and Eddie Jackson led the way with bad tackling. And then Adrian Amos, I don't particularly relish the idea of him coming back to the Bears for the reasons that you mentioned. But, at the right price, he had a terrible year with the Packers last season. They split up his time on the field. He had a concussion. So maybe he's not even worth looking at. I don't know. And then Josh Jones was a former number 1 draft pick who has kind of been moving around a little bit. He played with the Packers, and I think it was with I forgot that maybe the Titans last season. But we need a veteran back here. If we can't find a safety, and in my mock draft, I didn't. So that's why I thought a safety was necessary.
Yeah, I like the Edmonds. I think that's a good pickup if you could sign him.
Yeah. You know what? And they've got the money to give him a 1-year prove-it deal. Hey, $8 million. So there's no assurance here that Eddie's going to play in 2023. So you'll have the opportunity to start and prove yourself. And then, because he's still young, he's like 26, 27. So you could still get that big fat contract that you're looking for. So Chicago could be a really good place for him.
And not to mention, even if Eddie does come back, it might be one of those cap casualty moves following the 23 season, and Edmonds gets his big deal to take his spot.
Indeed. All right, let's move now to, are we done with the defense? Yeah, we're done with the defense. Let's go to the offense.
The one guy that you wanted to draft, by the way, out of Northwestern, or hypothetically, every time you said his name, it made me think of Adewale Agunlie.
Oh, that one I know how to pronounce.
Yeah, but when you say his name, it sounds like Adewale is what you're saying.
I think they're related. No, I'm not serious. All right, offensive line, and for some reason I've had it in my mind. All we really need is a right tackle, but that's not true. This fucking line needs help. So right now at left tackle, you got the promising Braxton Jones. This is going to be a really big year for him because this kid is so reflective of how he has played and his deficiencies.
Larry Borum starting. I'm sorry, we're in trouble. He is Sam Mustipher. He's the weak link now. Mustipher was the only one worse than he.
Yeah, well, there's no right tackle in the roster right now, according to the website. So I had to put him in there. It's not because I wanted it, that's for sure. But Braxton Jones, to me, is going to be the key. Is he going to come back with a better anchor? Is he going to be able to stop that bull rush? That's the key, because that was his number one deficiency. There were some other things, but you would expect that out of a rookie, no matter where he was drafted. The key thing is, can he get stronger and stop the bull rush? Because that's where he really looked bad at times. Now we got the new guard, Nate Davis. He'll start at left guard, apparently. Ryan Poles has talked about Cody Whitehair moving to the center position, so I put him there. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just got to mention this. I'm not pounding my chest saying that I'm right or I was right, but in this instance, I was right. God, I got into so many debates with Phil over this. Like he for some reason never saw Whitehair's high snaps. When Whitehair was the center, he constantly had those really, really high snaps, like almost over Mitch's head, constant, untimely too. It'd be like 3rd down and 7, and then, there's a bad snap. Now the Bears are punting. It happened all the time.
Yeah. By the way, Retro wants to put a $2 bill on your garter belt there. So thank you very much, Retro. Very nice of you. It's like we're at a strip bar and people are throwing dollars at us. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Did you see the woman? Have you ever stripped for a woman?
Nobody wants to see me strip, but I got it. This is a political story. Did you see where this is what was reported? And again, if I say this, Republican fans or friends will say, well, that's the liberal media lying there. But it was reported that the Proud Boys, a bunch of the Proud Boys went to a drag show to talk shit to a bunch of the men dressed as women, and they got their asses kicked by the drag.
I don't believe
I swear on my dad or my mom's grave, either one. That story was reported. They went to a drag show to heckle and got their asses whipped.
What outlet was that? One of those far left?
It was from a far left source. I will give you that. It was from Keith Olbermann. I said allegedly.
Keith is so much fun to listen to, but half the time I'm not sure he's making any real sense. But you've been listening religiously to his new podcast, Countdown, right?
Hey, if you like the show on MSNBC back in the day, it's
I loved
very similar. It's the same structure, even the same music. I mean, it's and you gotta have all the same segments. And again, if you ever had time to do a deep dive, he does all these like behind the scenes stories of his career, whether it was at CNN or ESPN or MSNBC or when he worked for Murdoch at Fox. I mean, he gives you all these stories that he never, like Susie Colbert was a bitch, things like that. I mean, it's just, he gives you the fucking dirt, man.
Yeah, he's at a point in his life where he's like saying, fuck it, I don't care. I'm going to tell you the truth, at least the truth as I know it.
Like in 2019, they were going to bring him back to MSNBC, and Rachel Maddow's the one who stopped it. And like he's the one that got Maddow on air and taught her how to read a teleprompter and everything. And and then she basically buried him and double crossed him. So yeah, He gives you all these stories, man.
Yeah, I could see Rachel doing that. All right, let me get back to where'd my little graphic though? Let me get back to this. So let's redo this offensive line.
Yeah, let's talk offensive line.
All right.
Okay. Paris Johnson. I like
we've
that.
got Paris Johnson, first round pick. I mentioned before we traded down to 12, and Paris Johnson, according to that mock draft, who you were still there, that's my right tackle for the next 15 years. 15 years he's going to play at right tackle for Justin Fields.
That's a long time.
Okay, give me 10 then.
Yeah, give us a Keith Van Horn, solid 10, 12 years like Keith Van Horn. We'll take it.
Thank you. And then I'm drafting John Michael Schmitz in one of 2 second-round picks. I'm drafting John Michael Schmitz, the kid out of Minnesota who I fell in love with at the Senior Bowl. This guy has got some fucking nastiness to him. He's got some Kyle Long, but he comes off the field, talks to reporters like he's the fucking kid next door. Love him. Lucas Patrick can be his backup. So now you've got Paris Johnson at right tackle. You got Tevin Jenkins at right guard. You got Schmitz at the center. You got Nate Davis, who's coming off an outstanding year with the Titans. And you got the promising left tackle, Braxton Jones. And if for some reason he doesn't work out, George Fant, who is not a great veteran, but he would be a adequate left tackle if for some reason Braxton Jones went down, or really any of the starting tackles went down, he would be adequate. He played 300 snaps at left tackle, 200 snaps at right tackle. Bring in George Fant. What do you think?
I am worried about the backup guards there. I know a lot of people like the Iceland guy, but when I saw him play, now it wasn't that. It's not like he got an extended look at any point, but he didn't look good. And I don't know much about Carter, but when I see both of their names on there, I'm like, oh, Michael Schofield's still out there. Bring him back for one more year, just as a backup like insurance policy, or somebody comparable to that, like a veteran backup guard that can swing either left or right.
Right.
I don't like that Iceland kid. I hope I'm wrong.
I won't argue with you there. I think there's a reason why he has been in the practice squad now 3 full seasons. And, I think if he would have shown good tape in practice, they probably would have given an opportunity to start. But I'm just going to have him there as a placeholder until somebody better comes along. But I do like the idea of an offensive line that looks like these starters. This kid, Jatari Carter, this is a guy that's got all the athleticism that Bears look for, but he was very raw. And so we're hoping, one of the problems that he had, I think, in college was his anchor. So I'm hoping that a year with a pro strength and conditioning class that he can live out whatever potential he's got. Adeptus says Dieter Eisen's also stuck around for a reason. Yeah, he's stuck around for a reason because he perhaps is a good emergency guy to call up.
I got one more for you. Not to interrupt. I'm sorry.
No.
I'm not a fan of Larry Borum at all. What don't we still have Leatherwood?
Yes, I didn't put him on because he's still technically on the roster, but I just don't think he's going to make the team. I really don't.
I would rather have him be the backup right tackle than Larry Borum. I know a lot of people like Larry, but to me, when Larry is the new Sam Mustipher now, like to me, he is the weak link every time he's on the field.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope I'm wrong if he's playing. I'll be rooting for him if he's playing, but
yeah, hopefully he's not listening.
Yeah, no offense, Larry. You can kick my ass if you need to, as long as you protect Justin. You protect Justin, then it's worth a black eye.
Absolutely. And it's his 3rd year. I think you mentioned that, Borum. And so this is his season. You got to prove that you deserve a place on this roster. Jordan is saying people sleep on Leatherwood, but I'm not sleeping on him. I saw him play.
How could he really be that? How could he be that bad considering he was a 1st-round pick? But you're right. Like when the Bears gave him a couple series late in the season, and I mean, he was woeful. But can he be that bad? I mean, I guess sometimes, like we always mention, Stan Thomas, 1st-round pick for the Bears, that was so bad in '91. But he was gone after his second year. But could Leatherwood really just be that bad?
Yes. Well, I can only go by what I've seen. I went back and I looked at his tape with the Raiders, and it was fucking awful. It was awful. And so they moved him from right tackle to guard. At first, it looked like, okay, maybe he found that home at guard, but then his play deteriorated. And I think that there's something going on in between his head, in between his ears. And so I think that's the issue. It's not so much the athlete and the player and what he knows and stuff. I think it's just he gets out to that field and he forgets stuff. I'll give you an example. I remember posting up on Twitter the day that he got the start at, I forgot if it was at right guard or right tackle, and the ball was hiked, and the quarterback went back a foot or two, took a step back or two, and Leatherwood was still in his stance. He was clearly sleeping, and I think that's what's going on inside him. He's thinking too much or not thinking enough. I don't know. I hope that he pans out all right, but like N'Keal Harry, it was a former first rounder, and Leatherwood, both of them were traded for, I think, these former first rounders.
I thought Harry did okay every time he got a shot. I mean, he had a really great catch in one game from Fields midway through the late in the season, like week, was it the Buffalo game or Philadelphia? It was one of those games late in the season where he had this 50-yard catch down the field, but I'm sure he's not going to be back now. But I don't think he's as bad as. Did my mic cut out?
Yeah, it did.
Am I here?
Yeah,
I'm here though, right? You can hear. Okay,
yeah.
good. I don't know what happened there.
You were saying I don't think he's as bad, and then something happened.
Yeah, some people don't think that he was any good at all. I'm not saying he's going to be your number one. I know he's not with the Bears anymore, and he's not going to be brought back. But I hope he doesn't go to Green Bay or Minnesota. Like, he'll go ball against us in one of those teams. One of the things after you're done with the offense here, I'd like to get you to comment on Montgomery too publicly, because you were off when all that was breaking Tuesday.
Yeah, I'll share some thoughts on that. And Tareen's post here inspires me to say that John Buffon is going to be back for another season of Buffon 55. He will, on draft night for the first round, he will be anchoring our coverage. We will be live throughout the first round of the draft, and John Buffon will be anchoring our coverage.
Buffon has such great energy.
He does, and he used to do sports anchoring for a television station in Pennsylvania, and so he's perfect in that role. We'll have a lot of analysts providing content and analysis on stuff, but John will be at this chair leading the way. So, but I have not gotten his opinion on what's been happening with the Bears currently. And then where was Jordan? Jordan says, I'm not saying Leatherwood is an all-pro. Just realize how much the Raiders fucked up his development track. And that's fair, Jordan. That's totally fair. I mean, how many former first-round picks from the Mayock Gruden era have now been released? And it's impossible that for them to have missed on so many first-round draft picks. They have had something to do with the terrible play of.
Well, goddamn, the Bears did that for years. Missed on their first-round pick during this ass-kicking tsunami of 30 years from Green Bay. We could go through the last. Well, we didn't even have a number one pick 3 different times during this era, but because of trades. But during that era, I bet you the Bears, if they had 27 first-round picks, like 20 of them were busts.
Mm-hmm.
For real. I mean, we were the team that always missed.
And which is why we weren't winning consistently, because when you fuck up that often with the high draft picks, it's the end of the world for your franchise.
I mean, just real quick, Rashawn Salam and Curtis Enos and Cade McNown. I mean, Kevin White. I mean, there you go. Yep. Shea McClellan.
Mm-hmm. You guys probably talked about this last week, but are you picking Jalen Carter, a defensive tackle from Georgia, given that those 2 arrests warrants were settled? He's got a year probation. and factoring in the fact that he probably had a bad pro day because he had all these concerns going on about his legal issues, but all of that is supposedly resolved. He is considered the best 3-tech in the in this National Football League draft. Are you drafting him at 9 if, let's say, that offensive lineman Paris Johnson is available and you had a choice between Carter and Johnson? What would you do?
Ooh.
Tough one, right?
If they're both available, yeah, that's tough. It just, I don't know. It depends if they would sign somebody else, like you said, a 3-tech as a veteran or something. But if, let's say, he's there and Johnson's gone, then I have no quarrels with drafting him. Like you said, I mean, the guy made a mistake, and chances are, they wanted him to leave the scene because of who he is. We don't want you to get in trouble with this shit, man. Get out of here. I mean, that's a fair reaction that anybody would have with somebody that they looked up to. You know what I mean? Like for example, if you were out on probation and we crashed, like, dude, get an Uber and get out of here. You're not supposed to be drinking right now. Like there's certain reasons to protect certain people, and he's got a professional career in the balance. So anybody that's really his friend is going to say, get the fuck out of here. Don't be seen here, so that doesn't bother me so much. I know everyone was saying he was too heavy at his pro day. He was too slow and all this. I mean, maybe that works out good. Maybe Detroit passes him up because of that, because otherwise he could go 6 to the Lions and then be another guy that beats us.
Right. See, my problem is his performance in the national championship game. He played over 50 snaps, had only 1 tackle. He looked gassed. In important parts of the game, he was taking himself out. You see him, breathing. So he was out of shape even before this accident happened. And so why? What was going on here? Was he just resting on his laurels, knowing that at that point everybody was saying, well, if the Bears got the number 1 pick, they're going to pick this Carter kid. So did he take his foot off the gas pedal? Does he really love the game? Those are the questions that I would have for him in that one-on-one talk that the Bears are definitely going to have with him. But can you believe whatever he says? And then when you go to the training department guy, all the scouts talk to, everyone that was hanging out, anyone that knows him and so forth. Can you really get an accurate assessment of him? That's the scary part. Or do you draft a right tackle that you need and from a kid who has an impeccable record, no problems whatsoever? So that's the choice. I would love to have a player, an Aaron Donald type dominant defensive tackle that's going to disrupt the pass rush right straight up the middle.
Let me remind you, we missed him by 1 pick, Aldo. 1 pick.
Oh my God. That's one of my worst moments.
I know. That's why I said it.
Thank you. My buddy here.
Yeah, the Rams picked him one ahead of us, right? Wasn't that how it went?
No, yeah, exactly. The pick ahead. I for sure thought he was coming to the Bears. And then after that, I don't even think like it sunk in for like an hour or so that we drafted Kyle Fuller, because I was just so distraught. I stopped watching the draft.
I thought for sure when Donald went off the board, because we needed safety help so badly at the time that they were going to draft Clinton Dix, and then they went with, I was like, Kyle Fuller. Kyle Fuller? Yeah. Who ended up being a decent player for the Bears, even though he had the 1 year that, he had a knee scope and was like, fuck it, I'm not playing this season.
Yeah, I think he might be a free agent too. So that's my concern with Jalen Carter. Let's finish this thing up as we look at the rest of this revamped roster. Where were we? We were at the offensive linemen, and so now they're wide receivers. I don't think you need to do anything with wide receivers. I did put down here N'Keal Harry. They should bring him back. Eliminate Nasimba Webster. I know you hate him.
I don't hate him, but I think he's a practice squad player.
But I love this wide receiver room. DJ Moore, Jace Clopo, Darnell Mooney, Velus Jones. I really think he's going to have a nice sophomore season. Equanimous St. Brown will be the best blocking wide receiver in football. And Doris Fountain was the guy that was picked up late in the season from the Kansas City Chiefs practice squad. Watch this guy during the preseason. He's going to turn some eyes. He's fast. He can block. He can do it all. He's a nice utility player. Throw him back on the practice squad if you don't, or don't activate him on game day or whatever, and then bring in Kill Harry and give him another chance. So that's the wide receiver room that I see for next season.
Isn't your boy Pringle still under contract? I thought he signed a 2-year deal.
No, he's I saw today. I'm positive to say that he is a free agent.
Oh, I thought he signed a 2-year deal. Huh.
No,
I know he didn't do that well, obviously, but he was hurt. But I was going to say maybe if he's still there, they don't actually cut him. But I thought he signed a 2-year deal. I like Harry. Like I said, if Harry was brought back, I think I'm worried about Velus. He finally had a great catch at the end of the season. And maybe, a lot of people have had disastrous rookie years and responded, turned that adversity into becoming a good player. So hopefully that happens for him. You're probably going to have 6 receivers, though, especially if it's just the other person's a special teamer.
Well, you made a good point earlier about Mooney, and so because if Mooney now that injury affects his play, he misses some games or whatever, then all of a sudden this what I think is a better than average wide receiver room just moves down to being okay. So maybe you need to pick up another wide receiver.
Not Dante Pettis. Not Dante Pettis.
By the way, I have a friend. Do you remember that woman that we met at the Bears game that stopped?
Yeah. She was the lady, not to, I'm not mocking her. But she happened to be in a wheelchair, right? Yeah,
right. Exactly. Beautiful woman. Yeah. And she's actually agreed to model some t-shirts for us. So I got to get these t-shirts to us. But she told me that she saw Dante Pettis rehabilitating because the season before he was ravaged by injuries and he had some scars. I'm not exactly remembering what his story was, but he was not 100% last season. And so she would like to see him get another opportunity with the Bears, but he's a free agent right now. I highly doubt that the Bears are going to sign him back up. I just don't see it. But
I don't know. He was active, I guess, because of his punt return abilities. It seems like it's like he would drop a key pass and they're like, well, he's gonna be back next week, folks. Part of the tank.
J2K says in that last game versus Minnesota, Harry ran 2 wrong routes into the other wide receiver. He literally took his cornerback to the other wide receiver, and his quarterback made the play on the other wide receiver. He was terrible. But see, we don't know for sure. And J2K, I know you know a lot about football. Do we really know for sure that was Harry's fault? Maybe it was the other wide receiver who was running the bad pattern. I don't know. Last says, damn you, Aldo, you got me drinking the Bears Kool-Aid again, seeing your depth chart. I hear you, man. It's all about hope. That's why we come back to this team every year.
I wish we'd have brought in Thielen. He went to Carolina.
I've always loved Adam Thielen. I'll never forget the very first year we did podcast, Bears Bar Room, there was a guy named Jose Cotto. Really knew his football really well. And I said, I know he's an exclusive free agent with the Vikings. This was 7 years ago. And I said, but I really would like the Bears to try to acquire this Adam Thielen guy. And Jose Cotto says, oh, you guys always need your wide receiver. That's not laughing, but no, this guy is really fucking good. And he proved it with the Vikings. He's an outstanding player. Outstanding. All right, let's finish things up here. We are done with the wide receivers. Let's go to the tight ends. This is the current class. Komet, Robert Tonyan, Jake Tongas, and Chase Allen. This is what I want to do because when I did this mock draft in the 3rd round, Darnell Washington was still available. And with the first pick of the 3rd round, I draft Darnell Washington. And I know Mr. Shorty is saying, I told you he was good because I said, I don't know about this guy, but I went back. I've done some studying on him. This guy blocks like an offensive tackle. So whichever one of our tackles needs help, put Washington on that side. He can play immediately doing that. But he's also a fucking freakish, ridiculously talented athlete. And so those numbers that made me believe that maybe he wasn't that good because he would only catch 20, 30 passes in college, fuck that. This guy could potentially be a superstar tight end. I like him. And he gives you a backup in case Kmet does leave, in case Tanyan gets injured in his one season with the Bears or whatever.
I hope that Tanyan and Kmet both ball out. You got to root for guys that were Bears fans as kids, man.
Yep. Tanyan from McHenry, Illinois, not too far from where I live. Absolutely. 2 Chicago area guys, Kmet and Tanyan. How about that? How sweet
What
is
about
that?
Jay Cutler? Remember, he was a Bears fan as a kid.
From Santa Claus, Indiana, right?
There you go.
Man, oh man, how could I? All right, so let's move on from the tight ends and now the all-important running back room. We've got Dante Foreman, Khalil Herbert, Treston Ebner at number 3, and the fullback is Blasingame, who was recently re-signed. I am drafting late, and this is not my favorite running back by any means, but he was available, I think, in round 5. And so the kid from Illinois, Chase Brown, I think I was not that impressed with him at the Senior Bowl, but he did have a tremendous year at the University of Illinois. He is the kind of guy that can break big plays. I was hoping to see Tajay Sharp drop to day 3, but he didn't. His stock has been rising since the Senior Bowl. Chase Brown was there, and so now I've got a running back room of Foreman, Herbert, and Brown. I like that, and that.
Don't forget the kid they signed from the Seahawks.
Oh, that's right, Homer.
Yeah, so that's probably your third back.
Yeah. Jesus
I like the
Christ.
quote that was attributed to Foreman. I didn't see like the soundbite, but I read a quote that said, I didn't come here to be the backup.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I came here to carry the load, to be the man. I like that, you know? And Khalil Herbert, his Achilles heels, he can't pass block. At least that's every time it seems like whenever he's in on a passing play, Justin gets sacked. So, I mean, the job, either Khalil suddenly, gets better in the offseason, which he can do, or I could see him not starting because his inability to do so, that pass blocking.
Well, and you just reminded me that was something that the Bears says, you're not going to be a running back for the Chicago Bears if you can't protect Justin Fields. So I wonder if Khalil Herbert, his job, his status with the Bears as the backup running back is in danger. He's desperately got to improve that. And another point, at the Senior Bowl, Chase Brown did not do a good job with his pass blocking. So I think we need, Homer is definitely the guy. Homer wants to pass block. He loves doing that. He and Foreman are going to be a nice duel, but I'm still of the belief that the Bears' next number 1 running back is going to be drafted either in 2023 or it might have to wait till 2024. We'll see.
Foreman, man, that makes me think of Chuck.
I know, right? Chuck Foreman, Minnesota Vikings.
Such a good player. Guy. Hey, if you don't mind me real quick telling you, pardon me, a 30-second story I read today, completely off topic.
Sure.
Speaking of old football, you remember Charles Haley, right?
Oh, yeah.
He was the dominant player for San Francisco, their sack guy, and then suddenly he's traded to Dallas and wins 3 rings with the Cowboys.
He's in the Hall of Fame, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I saw Dexter Carter, who used to be their kick returner, talking about why Charles Haley was traded to Dallas. He said the real story of why Charles Haley was traded. He said, and he didn't tell you the player till the end of the clip. He's like, Charles Haley was enigmatic and ran his mouth to everybody and didn't give a fuck. He even talked shit to Montana. He said, but Joe was Joe, and Joe was secure, and Joe just didn't engage him and didn't give a shit. If he said something to Joe, Joe would just ignore him. And so, but he fucked with everybody on the team and constantly was sort of a diva. But the one guy he fucked with and he upset, and according to Dexter Carter, he was traded within a week, was Jerry Rice.
Oh, wow.
He said, we lost our sack guy because you don't fuck with Jerry Rice. He said that he was running his mouth at Jerry. Jerry ran his mouth back, didn't like it. They almost got into a fight within a week. Their best pass rusher was in Dallas and winning 3 rings with them.
That is something. And did you also hear that story about Haley that he used to love to walk around in the locker room with his dick out, and he apparently had this mammoth penis, and he would walk up to, he apparently would walk up to guys' locker rooms as they were sitting, so his dick would be like swinging, inches away from a player that he was saying, "Good game, good game." Did you ever read that? I
didn't, but I wish that the Bears had a story like that of somebody that like, I don't know, Mike Tomczak. Tom Waddle would walk around with a gigantic white cock and throw it around at people. Brad Muster.
or Nick Poles, the very religious Nick Poles.
Yeah, Nick. Yeah, Big Dick Nick. That'd be great. Hilarious. Yeah, Todd Sauerbrunn. He couldn't punt, but man, he had a dick.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, so you were going to ask me a question.
About David Montgomery, because last week I was following Twitter extensively, because I think it was Nomad who said, well, before he went on, well, who's going to follow Twitter in case something happens? I was like, I got it. And at first it was David Montgomery and then the guy from Seattle a few minutes later. So right. David Montgomery leaves but goes to Detroit. So you didn't get a chance to opine on that. So
I did not. So here, I'm sad because I've loved David Montgomery. It was so fucking clear. Look at this. Tom Waddle for a reason. Huge cocks. Thank you, Retro. I hate the fact that we're saying goodbye to a guy who was such a fantastic person, a great leader, who played with his heart on his sleeve, who played with so much gusto and wanting success so badly. This guy was a true Chicago Bear. I said it on our post-game show after many games how much I really loved him. But I also understand that perhaps he was not the best fit for this Luke Getsy offense. And I hate to, I hate to have to say that, because a guy like that, you should find a room for him. But it's the truth. You need certain types of runners for this offense, and Montgomery doesn't fit. Now, what makes me even sadder is that he's going to the Detroit Lions, and he's going to a Detroit Lions team that has arguably the best offensive line in all of football. Those guys are deep at that offensive line position, and he is definitely, in my mind, he's going to have his best fucking season as a pro, and he's going to do it mostly against us. So.
Yeah, Dan Campbell, I again read a quote. I didn't see the video. Dan Campbell said he'll be given the chance to be the man here, unlike he was never given the real shot in Chicago. and I think about that. And you remember there was a 4-game stretch that Herbert was injured. He missed a month. And in that stretch, it seemed like every game Justin had more carries than David Montgomery. So when Khalil was hurt, and you figure, okay, Montgomery's going to get 20 carry games now, just to show who he is, to see if you're going to re-sign him. Feed the man to see. And it's like I believe they never really gave him the shot to be that guy during that run when the other guy was hurt. And Ebner is just slow as shit, it seems. And he had a good preseason, but looked so bad when he was in the game. So I thought when David Montgomery, didn't get more carries, he probably was gone. And so I hate to see him go to Detroit, though. But it's better than Green Bay.
Yeah.
Or Don Minnesota.
Don Burr, our resident Lions fan, just popped in, and we were actually saying some nice things about the Lions. Don, they've got the best roster in the NFC North, and so it's going to be really fascinating for Dan Aguirre and me to see how they're going to fuck this up, because there's no way they're going to win the division just because of who they are. So, welcome to my room, Don Burr.
Not Don Burr, but Dan Campbell says some crazy shit, like sometimes about people drowning and all. I mean, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about half the time. But I think he's good for them for something. Like, he's got just that gusto, man. He's like their Mike Ditka.
Yeah. And sometimes you need a guy like that to turn a franchise around. You need a guy who brings in this mentality, this us versus them. We got a chip on our shoulder. It's not just you guys, it's this entire franchise. And that can overcome the lack of knowledge with X's and O's. I mean, his rookie season with the Lions was, in my opinion, one of the worst coached teams in pro football. He didn't know the rules. He was always going for it on fourth down. The game that you and I went to, the Bears should have lost to Detroit if they would have kicked field goals as opposed to going it for fourth and whatever. So
he's got balls, though. I'll give him that.
He does. And sometimes, if you're surrounded by good coordinators and good thinkers, then maybe all you need is that figurehead. And he is, I'm changing my opinion a little here. He appears to be the type of figurehead that is right for the Detroit Lions.
But on the flip side, if you have that successful season, you just barely missed the playoffs, you knock Green Bay out, and you have a good roster, and you get these players, now there's pressure to win. Mm-hmm. How do you handle that? If they have a shitty season now, like let's say they go 5-12 or something, he could get fucking fired.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And I'm totally
There's expectations now. Expectations for Detroit after knocking the Packers out. There should be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Jamal Williams called Detroit a poverty franchise. Is that what he said when he went to his new team?
I didn't see that. I like him, though. I thought he was good in Green Bay, too. I like that Aaron Jones guy up there, too. He's a horse.
Yeah, he really is. Aaron Jones was spent 2 or 3 days on the NFL Network show Good Morning Football, and it was, unfortunately for him, the major story was, about Aaron Rodgers, and the poor guy had to sit there as they're asking inane question after inane question about Aaron, how badly do you want Rodgers back? The guy's already fucking answered that. He wants him back. And I think he was supposed to be on for the entire weekend. He said, fuck this, man. I'm gone. I'm not doing this shit again. So,
did you see the story that NBC Sports Chicago had that basically the article was, okay, we reached out to teams that are not trying to trade for Rodgers and was asking them hypothetically, what would you give up if you needed a quarterback, if you were the Jets right now? And according to the story, nobody was willing to give up a number one pick because they say he's too enigmatic. He's 39. He may not play more than 1 year. And so allegedly Green Bay wants 2 first rounds and a second round pick, and nobody's willing to part with even 1 first round pick, according to the article. So there's a chance the Jets do not even get him if they can't agree to the compensation. So maybe he's back because no one will give up what they want.
And I got to believe that this is the Jets owner saying, I really want this guy. Make it happen, GM. And the GM is saying, okay, I'm going to try as hard as I can, but I don't want to mortgage the future. You need to think about, this guy could come in here for just 1 year and play. And so we really need to think about having sustainable success. So I'm not going to give away. And so there's that friction going on. And the Packers feel that, what's weird about it is that Mike Murphy, I think is his name, the GM of the Packers. Mark Murphy. He's already talking like this guy is gone. And so he's playing hardball. I mean, he must really think that the Jets are going to bend and acquiesce to his demands. I don't know. If I'm the fucking Jets, I'm like, fuck you. God. Well,
yeah, and look what Favre did. Favre went there and showed pictures of his dick and was gone after 1 year.
Yeah, so I said this on Twitter. I don't know why anybody would want a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, who is now a known drug user. I mean, this ayahuasca shit, that is some serious psychotropic drugs. And you can't maybe disassociate the fact that he is saying all these weird things now after he's been experimenting with mushrooms and ayahuasca and all this shit. I don't know if I want him to be the leader of my franchise.
And a conspiracy theorist on the vaccine.
All this shit.
Yeah, and like he lies. Like he said that he was 90% certain when he went into the dark Remember, he went into the dark for 4 days without coming out. Bullshit. The guy didn't take a shit for 4 days. He didn't come out of the dark for 4 days. What a lie. But he said that he was 90% sure that he was retiring when he entered the dark room.
Right.
Again, he's lying. There's no way that's fucking true.
Yeah, there's just no way you can believe what he says. He's a known liar, as you said. And so I don't understand why. I know the Jets franchise, they're starving for victories, major city, haven't had a winner since Joe Namath.
Yeah, and thumbs down to Rodgers for that too. Like we mentioned, we talked about this when I was at your house. Joe Montana went to Kansas City. He didn't take number 16. It was retired for Lenny Dawson. He could have played the I'm Joe Montana card and said, Lenny, come on, I'm Joe Montana. And Lenny would have probably said, okay, you can have my number. But Joe had too much respect for him. Aaron Rodgers has already said he wanted to wear Joe Namath's number, which has been retired since like fucking 1977 or something. And Namath, of course, has said, good, fine. We want the Jets to win. He's like, I've wanted the Jets to win since I left. So please wear my number if you're going to help us win. But Rodgers should have the decency to not wear Joe Namath's number.
I totally agree with you. Herbert calls Rodgers the junkie quarterback. I like that. And Rick says he was right about the vaccine. I don't know about that, Rick, but he was, this whole vaccine thing, I think a lot of people forget that the vaccine saved a lot of lives. Did the government overreact? Did they put too many stipulations on shit and stuff? Arguably, yes. No doubt about it. But there were just so many screw-ups from so many different people. It was clear that this thing wasn't handled correctly, and maybe the pharmaceutical companies are involved in some conspiracy where they're not trying to make money, and maybe it's their strands that are calling for us to get a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth vaccine. Maybe all that is true. But when this thing first came out, it was clear. I have people in my family, and know people who work in the healthcare industry. They were telling me that they were watching people fucking die. And yes, a lot of them were old. And did young people need to go through all this stuff that they had to? My stepdaughter was stuck with us here for 12 months. Did she have to go through that? Well, yes, because she wanted to live here and she was afraid to get her mom and me sick. I have diabetes, and she was afraid to bring that home and didn't want to see us sick. So that whole contamination, this was a highly contagious virus. And so there had to be some precautions taken. But I am not about to say that the pharmaceutical companies are not involved in some fucking conspiracy, because I trust none of them. None of them. What do you think, Dan? Do you think it's possible Pfizer has been working cahoots with the government to make tons of money?
To make money, yes. But to create the virus, no.
Okay.
I don't think that I don't know if anyone was saying that. I didn't know if you were going that was a conspiracy theory, that they were involved with the lab in China or whatever. But, I don't think that just saying, do your research, I'm not doing it, makes you smart. Just because he's repeating what Joe Rogan said. I don't think that made Rodgers smart at all. It just made him a conspiracy theorist. How did we beat fucking polio? With the fucking vaccine? Exactly. When you go to school, when you go to high school, or I'm sorry, grade school, like if you had a kid, right? You got two daughters, right? When they were about to go to school, what did they have to get? Shots. Whether it was chicken pox, measles, all that shit, they had to take a bunch of fucking shots before they could go to public school. Right. I'm just saying, vaccines were never vilified until the Trump administration. And it ironically helped save his life. Remember when he had COVID and suddenly, but there's no reason to beat that drum. Whatever. I get it. I took 3 of them, and I don't know if I'll take another one. So I get it. I'm not saying everyone should be forced to take it or any of that shit, but I don't think that they were injecting tracking devices or any of that shit that people were saying.
By the way, Retro has donated another $5. I think he's up to almost $10 now. Retro writes, recently my wife and daughter had COVID. I and 3 other kids didn't get it. I still sexed her. Always knew that's how I die. What seems to be the problem? I was having sex with my wife who has COVID, and I'm starting to feel like this pressure in my chest.
Wow.
Would you, Dan Aguirre, have sex with a woman if she was incredibly sexy and was turning you on, but she told you, maybe we shouldn't because I do still have COVID, despite the fact I'm not showing any symptoms? Would you say, fuck it, or put on a mask and start fucking?
Is it somebody that like I got like a thing for, like a celebrity kind of thing?
Yeah.
In this scenario? Like
yes.
that actress I love so much, Annabella Sciorra.
Yeah,
oh my God. Yeah, yes. I think I'd be like, okay, man, I'm trusting my immune system. I had the 3 shots. Let's go.
I love it. Hair Bear says we beat polio with horse tranquilizers and bath salts. All right, enough of the virus. I don't want this to turn into a Dr. Phil episode.
Yeah, I never understood why that becomes so political. I mean, again, I'm not pro this or that. I just never at any point was your health like, anti-Republican before.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't understand. I'll put that as my bottom line, I guess.
I think a lot of people, because you were told you couldn't go to the bars, you couldn't do this, you couldn't do that, and so forth. These were mandated laws. I think a lot of people felt like I am not, my freedom is being taken away. And so then a lot of people on the right jumped on that. They saw that was something that their constituents were really upset about that. And as we know with this whole Fox News thing, we do whatever our constituents, our viewers want us to do.
God.
That's
do you remember
thing.
Back in 2000?
Wait a minute. Retro with another $5 donation. He says that he had sex with his wife during COVID. He says he's got the gout now, and she said, I should rest.
Do you remember after 9/11 in the congressional cafeteria, they started calling French fries freedom fries?
Yeah, freedom fries. Right.
Freedom fries. God.
So fucking stupid. All politicians are stupid. Some of them more so than others, but my goodness.
Barney Rubble's twin sister is the one who's the dumbest, I think. Now.
What is
Marjorie?
Trump? I thought you were talking about DeSantis for some reason.
Oh my God! Howard Stern had a bit this morning. The guy that talks like Donald Trump, who's so good. I don't know who it is, but he was talking shit about DeSantis as Trump, and was calling him, I don't know, Ron dumb shit or something. Whatever he said was funny. It's not funny to me recounting it. But their Trump guy was great, and he was telling jokes. He's like, if he was going to host the Oscars, the jokes he would have told, it was so fucking funny. And he's like, not enough whites are getting nominated for the awards. You got to make the Oscars white again and shit like that. It's just so fucking funny.
Did you Did you hear Trump call DeSantis the sanctimonious? I think that's his nickname for him.
Yeah, they were using that. He said they were talking about that, and he says, I don't know, it's a little bit too effeminate. I need it to be stronger for me. So but he was calling him.
Chubb says that you're brainwashed. Excuse me for interrupting you. But he says, okay. Chubb says Dan is a little brainwashed into thinking only Republicans didn't want to take this vaccine, when in reality it was all people, not just Republicans. Of course, Chubbs knows everything about all people. Chubbs really is disguised as Chubbs, but he's really the Gallup poll.
I don't think I'm brainwashed. I mean, I'm surrounded by Republicans, and yeah. They're the ones that were on the right were the ones that were like, telling me like, oh, if you get that, you're going to be impotent, or you'll never have kids. All these theories, It's always the Republicans.
Chubbs goes on, although it's just Republicans. Nope, it's not just Republicans that are stupid. The Democrats are perfect and are not at all a part of a system designed to keep them in power, just the Republicans. All right, I'm not quite sure what that means, but I sort of get it, but I'm not going to argue. All right, so there's something else I wanted to mention. regarding the Bears, and I forgot to write it down. I'm forgetting. Was there any more Bears talk that you have in your repertoire there? Anything that you wanted to discuss?
That's putting me on the spot. Let me think.
I apologize for that.
No. Oh, yeah. One more. Well, I got one for you. Everyone on the show disagreed, which is fine, by the way. Let me preface this again. This is fine. I'll just say DJ Moore's number 2. So they moved Cairo Santos from number 2 to number 8. I hope he never wears the number 8. I hope he's not our kicker this year. After refusing to, I don't want to try that field goal and making us fucking do a 34-yard punt and get net yards 7 yards after the touchback. This guy's got to go, in my opinion, when he has no balls. And I was saying the guy that's been wanting to come back to the Bears for about 8 years now is Robbie. And Robbie's a free agent. And they're like, oh, Robbie's 40. But I was like, Robbie was knocking the Packers out of the playoffs at Lambeau just last season, the year before. And still lives in Chicago and still wants to be back with the Bears. Cut the man one or 2 year deal at $4.5 million, and he'll come back.
Who would pay that much for a field goal kicker, huh?
Do you remember 2018?
Yeah, Cody Parkey.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you have a guy that now Robbie's not going to make you the 64-yarder like up in Minnesota or some shit like that, the way that their kicker was but he's going to hit your 50-yarders constantly. And he's clutch for the most part. When he got cut, it was for a reason, but for the most part, he knows Soldier Field, right? He knows Soldier Field. He knows the winds. He's been here. He still wants to be here. He like views the Bears as his ex-girlfriend that he wants to fuck. And knows the stadium. Like you hear Cairo whining about the fucking wind and the dirt and all this shit. Robbie fucking loves that stadium. And he's not going to be like Cody Parkey, who's like, there's too much traffic, so I don't go down there and I don't try. I stay at Lake Forest when I kick during the week. Like Robbie's like fucking telling you what seat he's looking at in the stadium when he kicks and all the like. It makes sense to bring him back, in my opinion, because I mean he's going to hit 45, 50, 52 consistently, and he can get you 3 or 4 more games with just fucking kicking and being dependable.
I agree. By the way, Cairo Santos is scheduled to make $3.5 million this year. So, and if you were to cut him, the cap hit is only $500,000. So that wouldn't be a terrible thing. But I don't know if Robbie would come back for $4 million. Maybe because he loves Chicago.
I think he would because he still lives there too.
He loves Chicago. He was in town recently, I think, for a Bulls game or a hockey game. So he lives in Chicago, still comes to a lot of sporting events, still has season tickets at Soldier Field.
He's going to be at that event ESPN Chicago's having that Cutler's going to be at too for like their anniversary of the station or whatever.
That's right. Okay, I saw that. Yeah.
Sarah Spain.
I would love for him to finish his career here, but I just want the fucking best kicker we can get, a reliable kicker who is not going to be afraid of the wind and saying, yeah, throw me out there. I got a strong leg. I'm confident in my leg. I can make this. And, the whole Cairo thing that you mentioned is I do give him credit for saying, I don't think I can make this. So, I'm just telling you the truth. That is good, because we ask players, tell me the truth. Can you go out there and play because of your injury or because of whatever? And he said the truth. So that's not why I want to get rid of him. I want to get rid of him because I want a guy that can make that kick.
And he missed like 5 or 6 extra points. Cost us a game against Detroit with that shit. I mean, that's even if it's not Robbie, I don't want. Cairo got drunk the night before his birthday and missed a game against the Giants, and the guy that made the 4 field goals for us that day's with the Lions now.
Yeah. And by the way, somebody said draft a kicker, and Moody from Michigan, get your next goal. You know what? There was a kicker at the Senior Bowl, and frankly, I don't remember his name, but he was one of those kickers where you heard it from the stands. The way when his foot struck that ball, all right, that is a kicker, and you saw it hitting 50-yard field goals, and the ball looked like it could have gone through from 65. So I'd love to get, I don't know who it is, but I'd love to get a guy who can look at Soldier Field and say, "You're my bitch.
That's Robbie.
You're my bitch."
That's Robbie, though.
But do you think the Robbie at age what, 40 is he?
He's 40, but remember, he knocked Green Bay out of the playoffs in that cold snow up at Lambeau, right down the middle. Like, he still got it.
Yeah, I guess. 1 year deal? You think he'd come back for a 1 year deal?
I think he probably want two, because he's gonna get a deal somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he would. He went to the Cody Parkey game and was rooting against us because he was so hurt about being cut.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, he's a season ticket holder, man. Like, the dude wants to be here. The dude's kids still go to school here. Like, fucking just get the deal done.
Do you, at the time the Bears got rid of Robbie, were you okay with it? Because I was.
Yes, because he missed that game-winning kick in Minnesota. In 13, he was missing extra points in the preseason. He missed a kick in Washington in 13, which I thought he made. There was the San Francisco game that they lost in 15, and another Washington game. So he was missing all these like critical kicks, and then in the 16 preseason, he was missing extra points, and that's when he was comparing himself to Michael Jordan. He had a big contract. He was the most expensive kicker in the league at the time. So, hell, I think they lost confidence in him. But even he said after the fact he got complacent and he had to, like, learn to kick again. And like, I'll use the analogy. It was Rocky III, man. He had to get the eye of the tiger again. He had to go back to the beginning.
Yeah, and that was on my list of grievances against John Fox, because I thought it was John Fox's responsibility to keep his kicker sharp, to keep him hungry, to keep him focused. It's the head coach's job and the coaching staff job to keep all the players focused. I don't give a fuck how much money they make. Some fans say, well, they're making enough money. You should. No, fuck that. These guys are humans. They could be. They don't give a fuck. You paid me all this money, so I owe it to you. Some players don't give a shit like that. And so those players are the ones you got to keep an extra eye on and make sure they're fucking nailing those 60-yard kicks, whatever, in practice, so they can turn it into the game. And I blame John Fox for Robbie, although when Robbie was released, I was so fucking mad at those misses that he had that I was okay with it.
Yeah, me too. I think he deserved it at the time, but he had a resurgence in his career, obviously.
Oh, gosh.
All those big kicks in San Francisco. Don't forget he beat us in a game with 4 or 5 kicks at Soldier Field.
It was. Yes, I was at that game.
Oh, wow. That was Garoppolo's first start in San Francisco as well.
Yes.
So,
oh my gosh, awful.
Yeah. I wonder who we had playing that day. Was it Matt Barkley?
Gosh, I should know this. I was there. I don't think it was Matt Barkley. I don't know. I'd have to look. My fucking memory.
I hope it wasn't that fucker from New England. What was his name?
Oh, yes.
Number 2. Oh, I hated that guy. I can't think of his name. Somebody in the chat room help us out. Brian Hoyer.
I think that's
Oh, God, I hate Brian Hoyer.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it was. It comes to the Bears, and well, gosh. Our
No, that was 17. That would have been Trubisky. Wasn't that 17?
Yes.
Yeah, it was Mitch because we had Glenn in the first 4 starts, and then Mitch played the rest of the year, right?
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, I think it was Mitch who played in that game.
Yeah, indeed. All right, I wanted to talk some movies with you, Dan, because I saw a movie I think you're going to really, really like. It is. Do you have Apple TV?
I think I have it for free because of my deal with Verizon or something, but I've never watched it.
Really? Well, it's funny that because I've been wanting to watch that Watergate series with Julia Roberts that you've been
it's on Stars, yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't have Stars, but I think it's available on Apple TV. So now
Well,
I'm
I
gonna
can
get
give you my Stars password if you want to just.
I don't want to do that. I hate sharing passwords, taking other people's passwords because then all of a sudden something goes wrong. Hey, did you give my password to somebody? I'm like, I swear to God, I did. Maybe I did. I
I
don't know.
mean, what would happen?
I don't know, but in any case, I saw this movie on Apple TV, and it was pretty cool. I think you'd like it. It's called Sharper. What's
This is
the
about
redhead?
Darren Sharper, the alleged or convicted rapist.
No. What's her name in the middle there? O'Connell, gorgeous redhead. You see the picture in the middle? She's in the middle of this.
Oh, let me see what her name is.
Maureen O'Connell, Julianne O'Connell,
Julianne Moore.
Julianne Moore. That's her name.
Yeah. She's got to be. Julianne Moore's got to be damn near 55 or 60 years old. I mean, she still looks good for her age, but she's been around a long time.
Yeah, she has been around a long time. Hold on. Before we get to this topic, PJ says, so question for Dan. Why is it that Robbie can talk about the Bears and you want him back, but Adrian Amos does it and he is the scum of the earth? Good question.
Well, my response to that, like, for example, the week one, remember we played Green Bay the first game of the 2019 season when the Bears thought they were going to go back to the Bears 100, were going to Super Bowl. And like, man, he was talking about how shitty Trubisky was and how predictable he was. Maybe all that shit's true as an example. But like, he's like been the person from my perspective that taunted the Bears organization. Like, Robbie has at least been yearning to be here. Like, I've never heard Adrian Amos say like, I wish I'd have stayed in Chicago. Like, Robbie's been like, I should have never left Chicago. They shouldn't have cut me. He's like, I've been kicking so well after them just to prove that they made a mistake. Like, I should have never been released. Like, he wants to be here versus Amos, who quickly opened his ass cheeks, took that penis. Adrian Amos is a whore and took that contract with the Packers. I'm kidding, but
I was like, man, you're being a little rough there.
I'm just kidding. No, but like, Amos was he was gleeful in the Packer, like, to join the other side. You know, he was like, Robbie has always wanted to be here, and Amos wanted to be up in Green Bay. Yeah,
we had him on twice here on the network.
I remember.
And really enjoyed the interviews with him. And during that last season of his contract, we told him, you know, hey, we understand this game. Go wherever you get the most money. Just don't go to Green Bay. He didn't listen to me when I said that. So that's one reason I'm mad at him. The second reason I'm mad at him is that, and I'm not so much aware as you are about what he said about the organization, but I am aware that he took to social media to say some things about the Bears where he was kicking us while we were down.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that sat really poorly with me. I thought that was not very classy. Robbie, I've got some problems with him too, but I don't recall, Robbie, sticking it to us on social media and making these comments. So while I like Adrian Amos and I would welcome him back if he came back, there, to me, there is a difference between Robbie and Adrian's comments, but that's just, our opinions here. But yeah. I want to tell you about this movie because, again, I think all of you people, if you can catch this film, check it out. It is called Sharper, and I'm not going to give you much of a plot rundown. I'm going to try not to, because it's filled with so many surprises, and I don't want to ruin them for any of you. So all I'm going to say is that beautiful woman on the lower right with the black dress on, there's this opening scene where she meets the African-American gentleman with the beard, upper left, and they start a romance. And what made this movie even better for me, which is why I don't want to give away too much, is because I had no idea what this movie was about. No, I thought at first, the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes, my wife and I are looking at each other saying, is this a love story? And I go, I didn't even read the thing. I just saw it was Julianne Moore, and I wanted to see it with John Lithgow, two great actors. So there's this beautiful romantic scene, and then all of a sudden this fucking plot just takes off to so many different plot twists and directions. It is unfucking believable. It will have you guessing throughout. You have to pay close attention because the film is told out of sequence, and which makes it like a Pulp Fiction type of drama.
Non-linear.
Non-linear. Thank you. And it's just got great performances, keeps you guessing. It's a brisk movie. It's done in about 100 minutes or so. I highly, highly recommend it. Have you seen anything that you'd like to recommend to me?
Well, let me preface this by saying I did not like the original series at all. I think I've talked about this on air before, but I hated the original Perry Mason because the guy never lost. And, you know, I mean, even if you're the greatest attorney ever, like there are cases you just lose, man. That's life. And that's the name of the game, the legal system. And, you know, I just couldn't stand that, like that this guy can't be beaten, you know. But HBO created a prequel to that set in the early 30s Depression era with Matthew Rhys, who played in The Americans, as the lead. Ironically, John Lithgow was in the first season. Season 2 started a couple of weeks ago, is what I'm saying, of Perry Mason. And I dig it, man. And again, I admit it because I like Matthew Rhys a lot, though.
I got to tell you, I did a binge watch of season 1 because I had not seen it when it was released a year or 2 years ago. Yeah. And I am in fucking love with Perry Mason. Saw the entire season 1 over a weekend, and now I've caught up with the first 2 episodes of this season. I love these dramas that take place in that era, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. It's a kind of got that film noir, a lot of shadows, a lot of seedy characters, you know. And for those, I know a lot of people in the chat, I bet you Cliff is familiar with the original Perry Mason. But in this redo, Della Street, who played Perry Mason's paralegal, assistant attorney, partner, she's a lesbian. And
she's pretty fucking hot.
And she's fucking adorable. I love her. I love her voice. I love her sexiness. And she's getting it on with other beautiful women. Yeah.
The girl in season 2 that she's with in season 2 is pretty fucking hot too.
Yes. Oh my gosh, is she ever? I'm praying for a nude scene.
Oh, that would be nice. You know, I thought the lady that Matthew Rhys was fucking in the first season that owned that airfield or whatever, you remember the airstrip and bought his house from him? She was really fucking hot.
Yes, and in an unusual way. She didn't have the classic beauty, but she was a sex bomb. And
was she Native American, maybe?
Yeah, I think she was either Native American or Mexican American. And there's this one scene where they're fucking and they are going at it like raw dogs. And he's fucking and they fall off the bed. And it's kind of like a scissor position. And they fall. It was fucking great. And I was like, yeah, she's not normally my type, but yeah, I would fuck her like that.
Yeah, and the cool thing about Reese's portrayal of him, again, this guy is from Wales. And so much like, again, he was in that Mr. Rogers movie. I actually watched that recently. Remember the Tom Hanks plays Mr. Rogers? He's in that, and he's got his American accent, and he's got it in Perry Mason, and he had it in The Americans. That's not even his real accent. And you don't ever hear him break it and lose it. And this guy is like really, really limey, you know, like so British. It's like unbelievable. If you hear him talk, like this can't be the same guy. Like Chris Watts would be like, hey, he's a wanker, you know. He sounds like Chris, you know. But he sounds so good, like his American accent, like he doesn't lose it. But the fact that his portrayal of Perry's vulnerable. Perry's a human being that is on the cusp of like losing his house in the first season. Like he is helping people because of his conscience, not because of his arrogance. Just he's not like super attorney or something. You know what I mean? He's vulnerable, and he's, you know, he is on the dark side. Like he is willing to break laws or cheat, and like, you know, fuck maybe pay for a hooker or something. You know, it's like it's a dark, gritty portrayal, not the cartoon Superman-esque Perry Mason. And they don't play that fucking song that I didn't like either. It's
Yeah.
I like yeah, like the score is really cool. And I like when the credits come on when they show Perry Mason and it looks like it's old, the way they show it at with the copyright at the bottom and stuff. It just everything about it is pretty cool. I don't know how long it'll last because it seems like a show that probably doesn't have great ratings.
Yeah, I'm afraid it doesn't, which is why I'm glad we're talking about it here, because I'd love for more people to get in tune with it.
Yeah, but I like it. I dig it.
Saint Omni reminds us that Gretchen Mol and Tatiana Maslany are in season 1 of Perry Mason. Gretchen Mol plays his ex-wife, and she is so gorgeous. And Tatiana Maslany, that particular
is that the religious woman in the first season?
Yes.
Oh my God. Yeah, she was hot as fuck.
And you need to watch Orphan Black, where she plays like 9 different characters in this, and all of them are super hot. So you really need to watch Orphan Black. It's I think it was a BBC series. You can find it somewhere. Orphan Black. Check out Tatiana Maslany. So
I will tell you a series that I hated, and I can't remember who told me about it. Maybe it was you. Like, I'm not saying you put it over as being good, but someone told me about it and I'd never heard of it. The guy that played Dexter has a one-off series where he is using a British accent. Oh my God, that was horrible.
Oh,
not because of his accent. I hated the show. I couldn't even get through it.
Really? He plays a guy whose daughter is
that's it.
Kidnapped or
real close to where he is, like in the same little subdivision or something.
Right, so it's about him trying to find his daughter, but you didn't like it, huh?
No, I like Dexter. I even like the Dexter New Blood, but and the show that you didn't really like that I really like is not Yellowstone, but Yellow Jackets, and season 2 begins next Sunday on Showtime. It's already been renewed for a season 3, by the way, already.
I liked it. I didn't think it was great, but I thought it was okay.
I really dug it.
All right, another movie that I want to talk to you about, because this movie really moved me, and is let me see if I can get the title correctly. The Banshees of Inisherin. Have you heard of it? It was nominated with Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson.
Oh, no, I didn't. I like Colin Farrell, though. He was nominated for Best Actor, right?
Yes, he was. And Brendan Gleeson, I think, for Best Supporting Actor. And
I'll have to check this out.
The movie I think it was shut out at the Oscars, which is too bad, because I want to get your Howard Stern story about Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but let me just quickly say The Banshees of Inisherin is it's a very slow moving movie. So if you're not into this kind of slow movie, then don't watch it. But let me tell you quickly what the story is about. Colin Farrell plays a guy who lives in this island next to the mainland, Ireland mainland. While the Irish Civil War is going on, he lives in this island, away from all the turmoil that's happening over there. And every day at 2:00, he goes down the road to the house of his best friend, Brendan Gleeson, and he says, "Come on, we got our 2:00 over at the pub." Every day at 2:00, they have some beers and sometimes stay up to the wee hours of the morning talking, and they're great friends. Well, at the start of the movie, he goes to talk to him and bring him to the pub, and the guy won't respond. He won't respond to the door knocking. He won't respond to, "Hey, I'm here." Taps on the window. He won't respond. And so he's like wondering, what the fuck is wrong with him? So anyways, he goes on to the pub, and the Brendan Gleeson then arrives at the pub an hour later, and he doesn't want to talk to Colin Farrell. And he finally says, "I don't want to talk to you anymore." "Well, why? Did I do something wrong?" "No, I just think you're fucking dull. And I don't want to spend the rest of my life in idle chatter, wasting my time when I could be creating music, because I love music." And that's the basis of the story. That's the basis of the story. This battle between two great friends who don't want to talk to one another, or one guy doesn't want to talk to the other guy because he just thinks he's fucking dull and he doesn't want to waste the last few years of his life because he's in his 60s. He doesn't want to waste that time. He'd rather be writing music and creating something for eternal memory. I won't give away anything else, but to me, man, by the time this movie was over, I had a lump in my throat, and it's beautifully photographed. I highly recommend it. It's probably why it was nominated, because it really made an impact. So please take a look at it and let me know what you think.
I would. Is it one of those I'm going to have to use the subtitles on?
You know what? I actually put the subtitles on because the accent is a little much. Yes. So
that's tough. Like, I find that accent is the toughest to hear for me. Like that one movie, I saw it at the theater. Like if I saw it now with the subtitles, I might like it, but I hated that Brad Pitt movie from like 99. Where I saw it at the theater with no accent. No subtitles. I couldn't understand anything. What's it called? Snatch?
Snatch, that's it. Yes.
Oh God, I hated it. It's because I couldn't understand anything, and I hated the Boondock Saints as well. That's another one. Now, one movie that has an accent like that I really liked is the Gentleman. That had Hugh Grant's in it, and Matthew McConaughey. Oh man, I really, really recommend that. And I think you have Showtime, right? It's usually on Showtime.
All right, I'll check it out.
Oh man, it's so good. I would watch it with the subtitles, but again, it's very dark and filthy in terms of its humor, and like Hugh Grant probably says cunt like 36 times in it.
You know, I've actually started watching more movies with subtitles on. Even there's been a couple of scenes in Perry Mason where I put the subtitles on because, you know, it's all this method acting. It's like, I really wanted to tell him that, and it's like, I can't fucking hear. I got it up to 60 on my remote. It's
right? Yeah.
So why don't you share with people the picture that won the Oscar? And won tons of awards at the Oscars. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. I've seen it. I sort of like it. Okay. So give me your thoughts on the movie, and also share the Howard Stern story.
Yeah. Well, again, at the time, I was trying to get. Like I told you, I've been up since like 9:30 yesterday p.m. last night, and I was at the thought process was I was going to go to bed, but then I was like, well. I emailed I sent a chat group to the vet that I go to with my aunt. And again, I had my cat needed to go back to the vet, I thought, and they weren't answering their phone or my chat. So I was trying to stay awake in case they called and I was asleep. Right. Mm-hmm. So I had it on Stern, like to just keep me awake. I didn't even know it was going to be live today, because you just never know. Stern's fucking on vacation all the time. But he was live, and he had the Trump bit that I thought was so funny. But at some point, they started talking Will Smith and Chris Rock, you know, and they were all behind Rock. I think everybody is for the most part, unless you're just some Will Smith partisan, you know, like if he's your favorite actor or something. But that veered into the specifics of this year's Oscars and that film. Now, like I think we talked about this on air a few weeks ago. My opinion on the film was I got the themes of it.
Oh, that's right. We did something.
Yeah, it was 2 hours and 20 minutes, and it could have gotten to the same point as being an hour and a half. There were so many scenes in between that were redundant, that had no point, that did not advance the story whatsoever, in my opinion, and were just out and out redundant. So again, I'm just barely listening, trying to stay awake because I was tired at the time. But Stern, I heard him say like, "Oh man, in this movie, it's like maybe I pissed for a second and came back, and it was like in mid conversation. At first, I didn't know what he's talking about. He's like, "This movie is so bad." He's like, "No, you hear that a movie's bad, but no, this is worse." He's like, "I thought," he's like, "because of all the hype, I had to watch it." And Robin was like, "Oh yeah," because Stern was like, "I hear it's compared to." The Matrix and all these alternate timelines. He's like, "Oh, that's right up my alley." He's like, "Oh, I'm going to love it." And everyone's, you know, it's so great. He's like, "It's so fucking terrible." He said, he's like, "I rewatched the first 30 minutes probably 6 times or something just to get through it because I couldn't hold my attention on it. He's like, it just is so bad and so redundant and just awful. And Robin was agreeing. She said, I never even finished it, and I tried it several times. She said, I just fucking hated this movie. And Stern was like, yeah. And he's like, it won almost every category. And he's like, I think he said something like it's the worst best picture to win he's ever seen. Ever. He's like, it is so bad. He's like, it's the worst. It's worse than bad. Like, it's way worse than bad. And now, I don't think that strongly about it.
Yeah, I definitely don't. I like the movie, but I don't think it's the best picture by any means. But I can see how people would feel that way about the movie because the structure is weird. Because there's some, like you said, there's some scenes that feel superfluous. I'm sure the filmmakers, they're talented filmmakers. I'm sure that they didn't put anything in there that they felt was redundant or anything, but apparently you and I feel the same about it. It felt like it could have been shorter. And, there were some of the stuff like when the guy who plays the husband who used to be the little kid in Raiders of the Lost Ark. I apologize. I don't know.
The Temple of Doom.
Temple of Doom, right. And he won the Best Picture award. He's wearing these gadgets and stuff. All of the science fiction paraphernalia all felt like it was like they ran out to the Ace Hardware store and got a bunch of stuff. It doesn't feel genuine in terms of the special effects in a lot of ways, and then they go into this fucking warehouse room, this closet where there's this major scene where he introduces her to the multiverse, and it's like, why the fuck is it happening in a closet? Couldn't they have filmed this in something more relevant? It was just a lot of parts that didn't fit for me, but I found the theme, as you mentioned them earlier, I found them all very compelling, and that the overall delivery of the messages of the film were heartwarming, and I think for that reason alone, you might want to watch it if you haven't already. I'm talking to people listening.
Yeah, they ended up in Stern and Robin ended up in a little bit of an uncomfortable zone with race being a factor, because evidently there were a lot of people that were upset that Jamie Lee Curtis beat Angela Bassett in Best Supporting Actress. And so Robin was saying, it's okay for a white person to win an award. Like, you don't have to just give it to a minority just because. But then she and Howard both agreed that maybe Jamie Lee didn't deserve it because she had very minimal screen time. And maybe she didn't deserve it, but it's okay. It's not that she shouldn't have won it because she was white, though. That's kind of what they were saying.
Yeah, and I haven't seen that the Black Panther movie that Bassett was nominated for, but I will say this: based on the scene, the little clip they used at the Oscars, I thought, wow, she should win. she looked fucking fantastic in that 1 10-second clip, and Jamie Lee Curtis's role in that movie, she's wearing a lot of makeup. You can't recognize her. It's almost like any actress could have played that role as well as she did, so I could see that.
I think it just helps to be liked at some point, and I don't think it's necessarily racially motivated, but like maybe she's an actress. She's been around since the first Halloween in '78, and it's not like she had a lot of Oscar-esque roles, but maybe people found her likable, so they said, oh, but look how cool she is in this. You can't even recognize her. So that kind of, because they want her to succeed, not because she's white, just because they like her as an actress, so she gets nominated for this, I don't know. I'm just trying to come up with a plan, but I will shift gears and say the one that they lost was Best Actor to Brendan Fraser. I did watch The Whale, and I had minimal expectations on The Whale going into it. I think the guy that did The Wrestler, Darren, I don't remember how to say his last name, the director.
Aronofsky.
Yeah, he's the guy that did it. And it's sad, man. It's sad. I I had it, I got a sister that died, and she wasn't anything like Brendan Fraser's character in terms of the weight and stuff, like to that extent. But my sister that died, her biggest sin in life, if there was one, was her inability to motivate herself to exercise. So to see him binge eating and all of this, and like anytime there's a problem, if he gets stressed, like he eats an entire pizza and all that, I could see people easily making fun of it. And maybe I would too, but if I didn't have a personal experience with my own sister like that, and she ended up dying really young for just being too heavy more than anything, although it ended up being sepsis, and it started out with a bump and all these weird things that should have been okay, but she got a staph infection, and just terrible, man. She had a bump at 39, and it turned into, like I said, a staph infection and then sepsis. And by 41, she was dead. But the last 2 years of her life, she was laying in a bed. Just horrible. She had the worst. It was just horrible, man. She was 6 years older than me. I'm not trying to get sympathy, just context. No. Yeah. She was 6 years older than me, and in a lot of ways was my protector when I was a kid. So it was really hard when she died, and just to see her to suffer. So I project some of my memory of that while I'm watching it, I'm sure, with Brendan Fraser's character. So I thought I was down. Like, I watched this movie, I think Friday morning, and I was down all weekend. I'm not gonna lie, it's a downer. I mean, it's a good movie, like especially if at the end, I don't want to give away what happens, and I'm not going to, but if you're a person of faith, which I struggle with, I'm not saying that there is no God or any of that shit, but I'm not going to say there is. But if you're a person whom does believe, you'll probably think the ending is beautiful. So I like the film, but it was so goddamn sad. I don't know if I'll ever watch it again, but it's a good movie. And his performance is really good. It's really believable. I mean, I know he's in a suit, but it's so believable. And especially if you've ever seen someone that binge eated like that. And hell, I eat too much at times too, but not like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's weird because I've wanted to watch that movie. And then when I heard, when you texted me and said, I saw it and it's really sad. Now I know I'm probably going to keep putting it off and maybe never see it, because unlike when I was younger, I really wanted to see all sorts of movies, sad movies. I'm in, I just wanted to consume cinema because I was a student of cinema and movies and wanted to learn about all these movies. But now, later in these years where I'm in my 60s now, I don't know if I want to spend 2 hours, fucking crying and going through that. I might watch it, but it's not high on my list, particularly nowadays when you have so many fucking choices of stuff to see. Sometimes I yell at my wife and say, why are you fucking seeing the Hunger Games for the 50th time or the Twilight movies for the 100th time?
Oh, those are so bad.
Things. Oh my gosh, exactly. And she loves them. She read the books and is just married now to those movies. I got no fucking chance of getting her attention if those movies are on. But so maybe I'll give it a chance. Brendan Fraser seems like that's a great comeback Hollywood story.
Yeah, I'll give you a little bit of the story without giving you spoilers. Please. His character, as you see him, is pretty much stuck in his chair. He has to use a walker. He's estranged from his wife. I hope this is a big spoiler, but at some point he left his wife because he fell in love with the man and ended up being gay.
Okay.
The guy died. His partner died. Maybe it revealed how he died, and maybe I was on the phone texting, probably you, this movie's so sad, maybe I missed the detail. But after his partner died, he just started eating because when he left his wife wouldn't let him see his daughter anymore because it was he's just a gay man. He left us for a man, so he's completely estranged from his wife and his daughter. And his partner died, so it's all he does is eat now to comfort himself. And but he saved all this money. He won't even get medical treatment because his goal, he's like, I'm going to get my daughter this money when I die. She's going to get all my money, and I'm going to contribute where I couldn't contribute, where I couldn't see her. But in the movie, he's trying to make up with her, with the daughter just fucking hates him and won't let him. And even like he ends up talking to his ex-wife, and she's like, our daughter is evil. She like likes to hurt people's feelings. She's like, she's a very bad person. And I know you're going to say it's because of me. And of course he's like, I wouldn't say that you're a bad mom. He's like, she's just a bad person. But in spite of all this, he's optimistic and says, no, that's her defense mechanism. And I don't know. He's an English teacher, but he's so embarrassed of his size. He always tells his kids because it's online classes that his camera doesn't work. So, but it's good, but it's sad. The stories make sense, like the backstory. It's not like too cliche or anything. I'm probably not doing a good enough justice for it. It's a good film, and it's like I said, if you have some form of Christianity or any other religion, something higher, maybe the ending will appeal to you as well.
Well, the one thing that makes me want to watch it is Darren Aronofsky, because he's done some movies that I really like. Did you ever see Requiem for a Dream?
Oh yeah, I forgot about him doing that. That one bummed me out too, to see the lady from The Exorcist addicted to those weight pills, and then
Ellen Bernstein.
Yeah, and Jennifer Connelly doing like the double-headed dildos for because she can't get any smack because God, the guy in that rock band, that's the worst part of the movie. He's in a band called 30 Seconds to Mars. I forget his real name. But like he keeps shooting up in the same arm and they have to remove his arm. It's just so like, why would you keep shooting up in the same broken ass arm with the vein that's fucking infected? Oh God.
Very intense movie.
Yeah.
And he did Black Swan.
Black Swan's a good movie.
Love it. What's her name? Who was in it?
Winona Ryder had a supporting role.
Natalie Portman.
Yeah, Natalie Portman. Winona Ryder was in it though.
Yes, she played her mom. I think.
Wasn't Mila Kunis in it too?
Mila Kunis was one of the ballet dancers. Yes. So
Yeah,
Aronofsky has made some great films. Even
I think he did The Wrestler as well, right? Marissa Tomei was in
yeah, somebody mentioned that earlier.
I didn't love that movie, but I love Marissa Tomei.
Yeah, I thought the acting in that movie was fantastic. I think the movie's okay, but yeah, I really
don't like Mickey Rourke. That's the one thing. I just like that movie he made with De Niro where he's fucking Lenny Kravitz's ex-wife that was on the Cosby Show.
Yeah, Angel Heart.
Yeah, where De Niro's like the devil or something in it.
I think it's Angel Heart.
I kept thinking because again, Lisa Bonet is getting fucked, is so naked in it, even though she's got armpit hair, which is kind of weird for some reason. But yeah, he's fucking Lisa Bonet. But and I'm like, God, the nudity in this is great, and De Niro's great. But the whole movie, I'm like, this would be so much better if it didn't have this fucking guy in it. I just don't like Mickey Rourke, man.
I've always liked Mickey Rourke. The first time I saw him was in a movie called Body Heat with William Hurt and Kathleen
I like
Turner.
that Kathleen Turner's hot in that.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Some hot sex scenes. And Mickey Rourke plays this guy who is in jail, and he gives William Hurt some tips on how to commit a crime. And that was a debut performance for him. And then all of a sudden he makes a bunch of really good movies and some not so good. And then he disappeared from Hollywood. And
they had weird plastic surgery.
Yeah, really bizarre.
Bad, yeah.
Really bizarre. I asked people in the chat what they've seen recently. PJ says, I just watched Violent Night last night. Kind of corny, but it was okay. Have you heard of Violent Night?
Yeah, I thought about there's another movie very similar. I don't know if the movies are similar, but both to me similar in terms of I thought about watching, but they just for some reason passed. Violent Night was one of them. The other one was called The Menu.
Oh, I saw The Menu. I thought I talked
was The
about
Menu
it
any good?
show. Yes, gotta check it out.
All right. I do like that actor, Ralph something. Ralph Fiennes or something. Is that how you say his name?
Ralph Fiennes. Yes.
He was an excellent. Look, I got a movie for you then. You may have seen it. It was originally written by James Cameron after T2, but he went through a divorce or some shit, and his ex-wife ended up directing it, I think. But it had Tom Sizemore in it, and it had that Ralph guy and Juliette Lewis. It was called Strange Days. Angela Bassett's in it, actually.
Science fiction movies. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with it. I have not seen it.
Oh, man. So, again, pretend it's 1995, that's when the movie came out. Technology is where it is now. But in the movie, like, let's say you recorded a scene where you fucked your high school girlfriend. You could be 50 years old and put this thing on your head and make your brain convinced it's happening live. And likewise, there's a guy in the film that's supposed to be like the Tupac of the hip hop world who gets assassinated. So all these people are basically watching this thing from they're like the cops who murdered Tupac, essentially, or not the cops killed him, nobody knows, but within the context of the movie. So what I'm saying is, like, if a man rapes a woman, you could buy this video and experience what it would be like to rape a woman if that's what you wanted to do, and your brain would think that you were the person doing it. If you wanted to be like, remember Being John Malkovich?
Yes.
In the movie, Cameron Diaz is fucking as if she's John Malkovich, and it makes her gay in the movie. She wants to have a dick. Same thing in Strange Days. If you wanted to know what it's like to be a woman and get fucked, you could put this thing on, and suddenly you experience it from that perspective, extreme POV, if you will. But people get hooked on it. It fucks up their brains. But all these like murders and shit are like snuff films that people sell on it. And obviously it's a big money game on it, and it like a black market. But it's a good film, man. Like I said, it's like 2.5 hours. Tom Sizemore with a huge role in it. It's so much better than I'm making it sound.
I wish I would have seen it before Tom Sizemore died. That way I could have talked about it on the new Mike North show. Somebody big just died. So we've been waiting for Jimmy Carter to die because we're ready to publish.
Yeah, he's in hospice care. And
the guy doesn't want to die.
Yeah, he's like, fuck it, I'm going to go build some more houses for the poor by summer. But Tom Sizemore didn't even get any love at the Oscars, I heard. They didn't even include him in their montage.
Yeah, he was one of a few people that were not included. Sorvino, what's his first name? Paul Sorvino. Yeah, he was
great actor. Either.
Outstanding actor.
What about Ray Liotta? Did they show Ray?
I think they did. I'm pretty sure they did.
Love Ray, man. All in the same year, he had Ray die, the guy that played Paulie on The Sopranos, and Paul Sorvino. Somebody else died, like, of that kind of mafia world in films.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who that is. Help me out, chat room. Who else passed away? Paul Sorvino, Mira Sorvino's dad. Yeah. Yeah, but I forgot. Well, somebody comes up with the answer. What do you think about what we have learned of Quentin Tarantino's final film?
That's like The Film Critic or something?
Yeah, I think that's the title, the working title at least, is The Movie Critic. What do you know about it? What do you think?
That's all I read. It was called something critic. So I didn't know, like, what if you can tell me about it.
Yeah, well, it was Paulie Walnuts, by the way, that just passed away, and he was left off the in memoriam.
Yeah, well, I mentioned Paulie and Ray Liotta and Paul Sorvino. It seems like somebody else like that died too.
Okay. Well, back to Tarantino. I'm reading from the Hollywood Reporter. Quentin Tarantino is back for the last time. The filmmaker behind some of the most indelible movies of the past 3 decades, Pulp Fiction and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood among them, is putting together what sources say is being billed as his final movie. The Movie Critic is the name of the script that Tarantino wrote and is prepping to direct this fall, according to sources. Logline details are being kept in a suitcase, but sources describe the story as being set in the late 1970s Los Angeles with a female lead as its center. It is possible the story focuses on Pauline Kael, one of the most influential movie critics of all time. So, are you familiar with the work of Pauline Kael?
I am not.
Yeah, she was when I was in film school, she was the film critic that other film critics thought she was God. And she wrote a couple of books, and I can see why Tarantino would want to make a movie about her because of her influence and his love of cinema. But I don't know if this is something people will want to see, other than it's a Tarantino film and potentially his last film. So we'll see.
Will Uma Thurman play her?
I would not cast Uma Thurman as Pauline Kael. I would cast who was it that you just mentioned? Annabella Sciorri.
Oh, yeah.
I would cast her. Anne Heche and Leslie Jordan were two other people left out of In Memoriam. Yes, thank you, St. Omni. St. Omni, I don't know who you really are, but you know a hell of a lot about movies, man. Thanks for all those tweets you send me, making me aware of what the fuck is going on.
The only thing I can, when you say Anne Heche, the only thing I connect her to is that Psycho remake. She played Jamie Lee Curtis's mom in it, the Janet Leigh character that gets stabbed in the shower.
Mm-hmm. Well, she was also in that movie with Johnny Depp and Al Pacino. She played the wife of Johnny Depp.
What was that called? I want to say, I was wanting to say Donnie Darko. That's not it.
No.
That's Jake Gyllenhaal, but it's something like Darko. What is it?
Yeah, it is.
It's from like 97. Decent movie.
Donnie Brasco.
Donnie Brasco, yeah. I like Johnny Depp, and I mean, I liked him a lot better before all that shit with the girl, but I love Al, though. That's one that's really going to hurt me when he dies is, Pesci just turned 80. And I don't want De Niro's supposedly an asshole to everybody, just like Bill Murray, but it's not like I want them to die or anything, but like Al, I'm really gonna like mourn for some reason, even though I don't know the guy. It just, I feel like Al's a great actor. I read, God, what's the girl's name? Shit. She used to date Al. Oh, it's the good from The Godfather, Diane Keaton. Diane Keaton fucked Al, and then she fucked Warren Beatty too. And I saw a comment that she made. She's like, Warren was so good looking that like every woman would say, oh, he's hot or whatever. But she was like, in his day, she's like, Al had the best face on a man I've ever been with, or whatever. She was talking about how hot he was or whatever, even though it was sort of in an unconventional way, because she was saying most people would say Warren was better looking. Yeah. But she said Al just had the best face she'd ever had. I don't think she ever got married either.
Really? She never did?
Yeah, and like she's in her 80s now. Yeah, so, but she fucked both of them, which I find interesting. So
Al Pacino, when he came out with that movie Serpico, he looked like one badass cool motherfucker. I mean, look at him. Undercover
great beard.
Top. Yeah, great beard.
I hate beards, and that's a great beard. It's kind of like the Beatles when they grew their beards in the late 60s. They just look better with them.
Yeah, I totally agree. And he was such a cool character in this movie. He played a cop, who lived in Greenwich Village, New York, and had, relations with these hot chicks. One of them was his neighbor. The other one was some chick he met at a ballet or something. And she's riding around on his motorcycle with no panties on. That was just such a cool movie. And it was based on the true story.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I know from work, nothing compared to like DA or your internal affairs in New York City, for fuck's sake. But the 3 years I worked at the PD, there is a pressure for other policemen to defend policemen, no matter how egregious their act is. Like that's what, it's like a code that even if you do something, like if you beat the prisoner, like I have to lie and protect you. There's pressure for them to do that. So that's examined heavily in Serpico, is he going to just go along with it and help this corruption? Yep. And then, of course, as the movie progresses, he gets more and more like a San Francisco Summer of Love type, with the way he's dressing and stuff. It's almost to rebel against the other officers. And, of course, he gets shot for it.
Right. It's funny because the real Frank Serpico said, that fucking movie didn't really do justice to what really happened. They exaggerated so many things. And it's Frank Serpico, come on. They're trying to make a movie. They're not going to fucking detail your life like it was a documentary. But basically everything in that movie happened, except everything was compressed and changed around to make it an entertaining movie that they spent $10 million to make and wanted to make some money out of it. So it's because I read the book by Peter Mass Serpico, and it's pretty close to the truth. But Nomad says we need a review of Blackula right now. Well, Blackula was a 1972 blaxploitation movie. Did you ever see it, Dan?
I did not.
Well, don't. It wasn't very good. If you want recommendations on other blaxploitation movies, I got a long list. I lived through that era. I would go to downtown Chicago and see Pam Grier in Coffee.
I've seen a bunch of the Pam Grier ones. Yeah.
Oh my God.
She's unbelievable.
Oh my God. Friday Foster. No, it's so many great movies with Pam Grier and The Mac with Richard Pryor, and I forgot the guy who played the Mac. A lot of great blaxploitation movies, but that one, it was not one of my favorites. Blackula, although it did have a fucking great title.
And I loved her in Tarantino, Jackie Brown.
Oh, yes. And that's why I love Tarantino so much. He loved Pam Grier so much growing up that he wanted to write a movie for her. And that's the script he came up with, Jackie Brown. And I got to tell you, that's one of those movies that every time you watch it, it gets a little better and a little better and a little better. It's really fantastic.
I liked how he would get, really big name actors to take smaller parts, such as Bruce Willis in Pulp Fiction, who was a big star at the time, and Robert De Niro and Jackie Brown.
Indeed.
He just kind of smokes pot and fucks Bridget Fonda. That's about all he does.
Yeah. And there's all these great feet shots of Bridget Fonda because everybody knows Tarantino has a foot fetish. And so in all of his movies, he tries to have sexy feet in them. And in one movie that he did not direct, but he co-starred in with George Clooney, I'm forgetting the title.
The vampire movie.
Yeah. Selma Hayek sticks all 5 toes into his mouth, into Tarantino's mouth.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he was walking around with a hard on for days.
On Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I love, and I will say is probably better than Pulp Fiction, and it's hard for me to say that because I love Pulp Fiction. But if you go back and pay attention, what's her Andy McDowell's daughter is one of the Manson chicks that is in the car with Brad Pitt, and she's trying to suck his dick while he's driving. And she puts her feet against the glass. Her fucking feet are filthy, man. And then in the theater, when Margot Robbie is playing Sharon Tate, she takes off her boots and her fucking feet are filthy. I don't know if it's an inside joke, but their feet are so dirty in that film.
You know what's interesting, Dan? Many years ago, I was me and a partner of mine were a guy I worked with, James Kessler, fabulous director. We were working on a screenplay that we called Fate-ish, and it had to do with this young couple and the fate. He was bringing them into these odd situations, and one of the situations was that they attended a fetish party, and so to write the script, I picked up a sex guide to fetishes, and it was like an encyclopedia or dictionary form where BC, all the fetishes. And so one of the things I read about foot fetishes is that there's a bunch of guys who are into dirty feet fetishes.
Oh, wow.
Yes. I wrote a scene where our lead character is picked up. She's trying to make some money to do something. And so she's picked up by some guy, and she had been walking down the street without her shoes because she didn't have shoes. And so the guy's turned down by her feet. And so he says, I'll give you $100 if you would let me lick your feet. And she goes, fucking hey, give me the $100. And she immediately puts her feet up, and they're fucking dirty as all hell. And then he comes up with his tongue and just cleans the fucking dirt off the soles of her feet. And as I'm writing this, I'm saying, this is going to be a fucking great movie. Well, I never finished the script. So.
That reminds me of another film, and going back 50 years now. And it's so funny. I think it was Roger Ebert that was one of the writers of it, who of course later become a film critic, who would have just ripped this movie to shreds if he'd have been his pompous ass film critic. But he wrote a film. Did you see Beyond the Valley of the Dolls?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he wrote that. And if no one saw that, like, yeah, they end up at this party, and there's this guy that is friends with all the the male characters, and his nickname is Z-Man, and he comes out as gay and is trying to fuck the other male character, and the male character resists, and the fucking Z-Man character kills him with a sword because he wouldn't let him suck his dick.
Yes.
Like, could you imagine if this had, like, Roger Ebert and them for years shit on every horror movie, and gave every horror movie 0 stars, and oh fuck, Friday all of them are garbage, but you got a man killing another man with a sword because he wants to suck his cock. And I guess that's okay.
Well, I got to tell you this story since you brought it up. Roger Ebert, it's no secret that he loved big fucking tits, large fucking tits, which is why he and Russ Meyer, the director of the movie you just mentioned, became really good friends. And Russ Meyer asked him to write do some script work on that Valley of the Dolls movie. And then they made a sequel called Beyond the Valley of the Dolls.
That's the one I was talking about. The Beyond was the one with the Z-Man and the sword.
No, the sequel is called Beneath the Valley of the Ultra Vixens. Let me see if I can pull up
I didn't see that one. I thought you were talking about the Valley of the Dolls and Beyond the Valley of the Dolls.
No, the one that I'm talking about, I'm going to put up a picture now because you got to see this. So I'm a college student. As I told you, I'm really into all things cinema, and I'm reading about all these filmmakers, all from the European filmmakers to what have you. And so I come across Russ Meyer and some of the work that he had done doing these exploitation nudie pictures, and then Hollywood gave him that big break to do that big Hollywood supported film that you just mentioned, and it was a disaster. It didn't make any money, but the concept was really adored by cult film addicts, and so he and Roger Ebert wrote the script to Beneath the Valley of the Ultra Vixens. And there are about 10 women here with the most stupendous, huge breasts in the world. And listen
Nothing
to
wrong with that.
Yeah, really. A horny little tale of Olympian togetherness, faith healing, bra busting humor, jogging therapeutic cuck holding, and for the girls, hulking Herculean masculinity.
Ebert is such a fucking hypocrite. If he didn't write this, he would tell everyone it was trash.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And did you ever see the Best Little Whorehouse in Texas with
something? Ironically, someone asked me that at 911 the other day. No, I haven't seen that.
It's famous for me because Roger Ebert desperately wanted to see Dolly Parton's tits. And he gave the movie a bad review because, he said, how can you do a movie about a whorehouse? And Dolly Parton is the what's the top lid, the madam of the whorehouse, and she doesn't show her tits. And so he was upset about that in his film review.
Hey, I got a question for you. Why do you think, and this is a serious question, I don't know the answer to this. Why do you think it is, and there are a lot of actors, or I don't know if actress is, but definitely actors over the years that have defended him. How is it that people defend Polanski with that kid? Like, for real, what's their side of it? I don't understand. Like, he sodomized a 12-year-old that he got drunk and was convicted of it, left the country, and has avoided extradition ever since, where he was going to prison. What exactly is there to defend?
I got to tell you this. Retro, a link for what? And thanks again for another $2. You just get paid or something, Retro? Thank you very much. But Hollywood is the biggest bunch of hypocrites in the world. Cliff Victoria, I know, will agree with me on this. They are always saying something and then doing something else. And I think one example of the hypocrisy is they witnessed a crime being committed. Will Smith smacking the shit out of Chris Rock, and then applauding Will Smith when he got his Oscar. They should have all got up and walked the fuck out.
Or booed
that
him,
was wrong. Or booed him or done something right. Instead of like giving him a 5-minute or however long it was standing ovation. He deserved a standing ovation before the slap, but because he slapped a guy who made a harmless joke, was wrong. Did you see the special, the Netflix special?
Yeah. He eviscerated him.
Wow, did he fucking come down on both Will Smith and Will Smith's wife and basically said, she fucking hurt you a lot more than you hurt me.
Yeah, she's the one that fucked your son's friend.
Right. And openly inviting you on a show to talk about it. And people are calling me and saying, Will Smith is a bitch. Will Smith is a bitch.
Yeah. I don't know how people defend Polanski, though. I mean, like, big name actors have defended him over the years for that, saying that he got a raw deal or something. If you get a 12-year-old drunk, I mean, I'm sorry. I don't want to sound like the moral police, but I don't think a 12-year-old girl can consent to sex with a fucking grown man.
Poor Retro. He really does have the gout.
Oh, that's something else Stern talked about today. I didn't know. He was mocking Elvis, and I didn't realize he said Elvis when he was fucking Priscilla Presley was 14 when he started fucking.
Yes.
Wow. I didn't know that. I knew that Jerry Lee Lewis fucked his 13-year-old cousin. But I didn't know Elvis was fucking a 14-year-old kid. Shit, man. What? Fuck, Elvis, Jerry Lee Lewis, Michael Jackson, all these people get to fuck kids.
Yeah, and in Hollywood, they just turn a blind eye to this stuff. And I really like Roman Polanski as a filmmaker. I love his work. And I'll watch his movies, but I will never – I would love to see him extradited back here to the United States so he could face justice because of what happened. And anyone, I'm of the belief whoever the fuck breaks the law should be punished for it, because no one should be above the law. And we've seen that over and over again, whether it's people with money generally who get away with fucking murder or rape or whatever the fuck.
That's something that the Trump guy on Stern today was talking about, where he's supposedly going to get arrested this week. Mm-hmm. He says something to Howard. He was like, only poor people go to jail. He's like, I'm not worried at all. And there's some truth to that, but I don't know if he's going to go to jail or whatever. Whatever. Fuck. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But going back to Polanski, didn't he win an Academy Award after that as well for something he directed after he fucked that kid?
Yeah, was it? No, it wasn't Chinatown. Chinatown was before that. Roman Polanski Oscar. Let's see if I can find that out. Roman Polanski.
Like, how could you give him an award after that?
Yeah. List of awards and nominations received. He won Best Picture for The Pianist. He was nominated 3 times for Best Director: Rosemary's Baby, Chinatown, and Tess. But yeah, the Pianist is what he won Best Picture for, and I think that was after the incident.
I did not like Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it either.
That fucking ending was just, I was about to say retarded. You can't say retarded. The ending was so stupid. Like, Mia Farrow's character is not going to acquiesce and suddenly join the devil worshippers. She's just not going to. They should have the ending of that movie should have been her stabbing the fucking kid or killing the kid for the sake of like God or the goods, whatever, defending Earth or whatever, within the context of the movie, it makes sense, good versus evil. I mean, if you say that in reality, it sounds, it's crazy, but or it's like the ending of The Omen, where they're he's trying to kill his son when he gets shot, Gregory Peck, by the police. But like, she just was like, okay, I've resisted long enough for 3 hours. No, I'm just going to be a part of the cult.
I agree.
Why did I watch it for? Why did I watch this for 2.5 hours for her just to roll over and join the devil worshippers?
Yeah, well, and it has such a high acclaim among movie critics, What do you think about this question from PJ, or this comment? It says, this is going to sound bad, but isn't consensual sex in regards to age limits a cultural thing? Different cultures have different age limits on consensual sex. You want to comment on that?
What he's saying is not wrong.
Yeah.
And again, maybe in 1976, I think that's when the incident happened with he and the kid.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we're having a different discussion then. But I've heard people defend him in within the last 10 years, saying that he should be able to come back to America freely and he was railroaded. And I that's why my initial question was, what am I missing?
Mm-hmm.
Is there something, an argument that I'm closed-minded to? Is there some way that I'm supposed to be like, oh, that's the angle?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't understand. I don't know what I'm missing here.
Yeah. In 1977, Polanski was arrested and charged with drugging and raping a 13-year-old girl. A result of a plea bargain, he pleaded guilty to the lesser offense of unlawful sex with a minor in 1978 after learning that the judge planned to reject his plea deal and impose a prison term instead of probation. He fled to Paris. A number of other women have later accused Polanski of raping them when they were teenagers. And to PJ's point, I think that is correct. That there are other cultures that they marry off their daughters and stuff. There are all sorts of different cultures. But here in the United States, it's considered wrong because the child might be physically looking like she's ready for sex, but emotionally doesn't have the maturity to deal with that. And it can be devastating for any young person, even if they had agreed to go up to the person's apartment, but they're 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 years old. They don't have the emotional maturity to deal with the sex afterwards. And so that's why I think it's considered wrong here in the United States. And that I'm no expert at all on any of this, but
I got another one for you that's coming out now, but it's backed up. I forget the lady's name, but you're familiar with Steven Tyler from Aerosmith, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so again, this is coming out now, and the lady says her motive is just to not have it happen again. I don't think she's trying to ruin Steven's life or some shit, but maybe I'm wrong. She says at the time after the first Aerosmith album came out, circa 73, that Steven Tyler paid her parents to legally become her guardian, to allow him to adopt her when she was 15 and 16, and she traveled the world with him on tour while he was constantly fucking her, but he was her legal guardian. And not only that, and Rolling Stone in 75 or something, she's mentioned in an article with Aerosmith, and Steven Tyler in a book apparently in 76 joked about how he almost got married to an underage girl. And again, it was funny in 75, 76, but those accounts of it being in Rolling Stone magazine and in a book seem to corroborate this woman's story. She claims for 4 years he was her legal guardian and he was just fucking the shit out of her the whole time.
Wow. This is an allegation that just recently came out?
Yeah, this year she said that he took her on tour from 73 through 76 or something like that. And again, she said that the reason she was coming forward because she said it's so easy for adults to get blinded by dollars and their parents allow this shit to happen to their kids. She didn't want it to happen to somebody else because as she's gotten older, she has a lot of problems with what happened to her, and she shouldn't have happened to her is what she was saying. And she didn't want it to happen to anybody else moving forward.
Jesus Christ. And who knows if that stuff is true, and you got to take it seriously now because so many times women have, were immediately chastised. You're bringing that shit up from many years ago. It's fucked up, I wish we could just start this whole fucking planet over again.
The one that I kind of did say, oh, why would you wait? I mean, again, who am I to say why wait? I'm an asshole for saying that. But Bob Dylan, who I'm not a fan of musically at all, is in his goddamn 90s now. And some woman came forward 2 years ago and was trying to sue him because he allegedly got her drunk and sodomized her in like 1964. Her lawsuit was thrown out. But it's just like, why would you wait 60 fucking years when the guy is shitting in diapers?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, she lost. It got thrown out. It just felt frivolous. But again, maybe those things really happened. I don't mean to diminish the victim. But in that situation, it feels like you did wait a little too long.
Retro is announcing that there's a meteor headed this way to restart this planet. Don't know, but it's going to happen. Yeah. Did you see that in the news that there is a meteor? I think that's supposed to hit in like 40 or 50 years, and it could have like incredible damage to the planet Earth. Depending on where exactly it lands, it could kill millions of people. I saw that, I think, on CNN or one of the news agents.
I didn't see that, but I think you and I will be checked out of this.
Yeah, you know, I just worry about my family, you know.
Yeah, of course.
I'm going to build them a fucking underground bunker before I
like
die.
the early 60s communist thing. That's one of my Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah, I was just going to say
shelter. Yeah, where they're arguing over the It is, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, come on, man, you got room in there for us. It wasn't built for the entire neighborhood. I just built it for my family. Now get out. And they fucking break down the door.
Yeah, and you notice during like the turmoil, they were all friends before, and then they start getting racist with each other.
Yes.
As soon as like the, it's just like there's so much truth to that.
Yeah, you know, Rod Serling, somebody needs to
way
make
ahead
a
of his
movie.
time.
Yeah, somebody needs to make a movie about him, because this guy was one of the more fucking interesting writers and people, and he smoked himself to death. You know, he was smoking 4 or 5 packs a day, and part of it was when he was in the middle of the Twilight Zone. He loved that series so much, he was so worried that, you know, about the network tinkering with it and asking him to take this out, take that out. He had to, every day he wakes up having to think, I gotta fucking fight with the censors again and stuff for shit that nowadays we would fucking laugh at. But that's what drove him to smoke so much and ended up killing the guy. But also, he wrote some really good fucking scripts for some old black and white movies in the late 50s and 60s. This guy was prolific writer, very smart guy. I saw an old interview with him on some talk show like Dick Cavett or something like that. A very interesting fellow, man.
Yeah, his Twilight Zones, they did fuck with him a lot. Again, I wasn't even alive yet, but I've watched every episode of Twilight Zone. I don't have them all memorized or something, you know, but I've got them all.
Right.
They were changing nights on him. And one season, there's 5 seasons. The 4th season, they changed it to 60 minutes. And then by season 5, changed it back to 30 minutes. I mean, if you're writing, 60 minutes, it's like 42 minutes, right? With TV commercials. Right. And then versus 24 or 22, maybe? 24. Yeah, I mean, that's a, man, you can't keep telling him like, well, you got to be 69 and 30 here, and we're changing your days. Like, no wonder, like, he was, like you said, was nervous and smoking and shit. I guess I'm surprised that Night Gallery wasn't better than that, because at Night Gallery, you know, it's a few years later, you could do more. He's on NBC instead of CBS, but you would think, I mean, there were some good episodes of Night Gallery, but there were some that were pretty bad. Like, it was definitely like a top shelf liquor versus like the cheapest of the fucking cheap in comparison with the two shows.
Demon 1599 says, Aldo and Dan, the episode of Twilight Zone when the guy got killed by the cops for being a life criminal. When he woke, he thought he made it to heaven. I don't remember that one. Do you?
I don't either, honestly.
It was my favorite Twilight Zone episode. One of my favorites, I should say, is this couple wake up in this home and they're like, "Where are we? Where the? This is not our house. What happened last night? Oh, we got drunk. Oh yeah, and I remember we were driving, and all of a sudden something darkened, and now we just woke up here. And so, well, let's go look around." Is this the
one where the neighborhood's all like empty?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I remember this. I remember this one.
Yeah, and so they try to go to the refrigerator. There's nothing but like plastic bottles there, and the whole house is like fake. And so they go outside and they're looking around at the community. There's nobody there. He leans against the tree and the tree fucking falls over. What the fuck is going on? And they finally like hear a train coming by. Oh, train. They run over the train and they find out the train's just going around in circles, bringing them back to the same town. And finally, the giveaway is there's this large noise of a little girl laughing. And an alien, a giant alien from another planet, had come and captured them and brought them to his planet, and they were now dolls for his daughter's dollhouse.
Right.
I saw that as a kid. I was like fucking freaked out for years.
I think my favorite one, the theme is because I do this a lot, especially with, like I said, my parents are dead, my sister's dead, I'm divorced, where you reminisce about, or like love watching old Bears games. So like I reminisce about the past a lot. So there was an episode where the guy is supposed to be a successful like guy on Wall Street or something. He's like 35, 36, but he's stuck in the past of like what it was like in his hometown, the small town he grew up in when he was like 15. And in the episode, he goes back to the town, and like he meets his dad and his mom from like 1936 or 7, but it's the older version of himself, and the young version of himself is there too. Yeah, I remember. So yeah, again, at first they don't believe him, but he's got his driver's license and everything. And it was something like, he hadn't seen his dad, his dad's dead, and his dad says something like, I love you, son, but this era isn't for you. This summer's not for you. It's for him. Like the younger version of himself. And he's like, you need to go back to where you came from. But the gist of the episode was you can't be stuck in the past. And that's it. The main character goes back to the present and is happy after this at the end of it.
All right. So I don't remember that ending, but just switching topics here. Desmond says the Twilight Zone episode I was talking about is a nice place called A Nice Place to Visit. I got it up on the screen here. Let me see if I can. Oh shit! Let me see if I can do this the right way. And by the way, you mentioned about what the network had him do. He had like 4 or 5 different openings for the show over the years. He would tinker with it. I don't know if that was the network that made him do that or what.
He had different theme songs too, like the traditional one that we know of, like it was like season 3 when that one started.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, listen, that's the first one right there.
Yeah, there you go. Hope CBS doesn't get mad at us. Southside Loan Company. All right, I'm gonna speed forward here.
Never to Rocky Valentine.
I love his voice.
Oh, he's great. Robert Redford was on one of these old ones.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of stars.
William Shatner, Burgess Meredith.
Yep. How about that? I don't know who the fuck that is.
No.
Oh, I remember this one.
Guide, as it were.
Sebastian Cabot from the TV show A Family Affair. Yeah, I definitely remember that. But now I'm gonna stay up all night and fucking binge watch Twilight Zone episodes because of this conversation. Retro is back with another $2 saying Twilight Zone of a game of pool, Jackie Gleason and Jack Klugman. I vaguely remember that one. Do you remember that one, Dan?
I don't. Do you remember Black Sunday, right? We've talked about that before.
John Frankenheimer.
Yeah, the guy in Black Sunday who was one of the policemen, not Robert Shaw, but the guy helping Robert Shaw. His name's Fritz Weaver. Yeah, he was in a lot of those old Twilight Zone episodes too.
He sure was. Yeah, the Twilight Zone, you mentioned Robert Redford, Jack Klugman was in at least 2 or 3 of them, I want to say. There were just so many actors.
William Shatner.
William
Shatner's
Shatner.
Really young in it.
Yes. But good stuff, man. By the way, Zach says, love Twilight Zone. Black Mirror had some decent episodes too. I have not seen Black Mirror. Have you, Dan?
No, and I haven't seen the Twilight Zone reboot from the 80s or from the new one from like a couple years ago on CBS. It didn't air on their network. It aired on their stream. I didn't see it either.
Yeah, I have not seen that, but I want to because I've always loved anthology series where there's a new episode every week with different characters, different storylines and stuff. And I just I don't know if they do those as well anymore as they used to. But I have not given a chance to up to Black Mirror and the new Twilight Zone. I have not seen those yet, so I shouldn't comment.
I tell you two that I liked as a kid a lot, and I don't know that they aged well, but in the 80s, I really dug them.
Mhm.
I watched with my grandma. I always watched Tales from the Dark Side,
Oh
uh,
yes.
which again, I don't know how well that's aged. I haven't really watched it, but I watched Tales from the Crypt in the early 90s on HBO.
Mhm.
And that was always really good back in the day. Again, I don't know how well they've aged, but I
Mm.
liked both of those at the time.
You know, and I do remember this one retro where Gleason plays that legendary pool hustler and Klugman was hell bent on beating him. I do remember.
Oh yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because in the end, he did win, right? The guy
Yeah.
didn't he did win.
I think so. Klugman won, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Do you remember
but
who Jack Klugman was?
it set Jackie Gleason free because like he was stuck in a perpetual having to play pool or
Yeah.
something. So he like leaves limbo or gets to go to heaven or something. What were you going to say though?
Do you remember Jack Klugman?
Not right off. I know that episode now though. I don't know who
Klug,
that.
Klugman was famous for The Odd Couple. He played opposite Tony Randall on the old TV show, The Odd Couple. Did you ever
I
see
didn't
that
watch
as a
that.
kid?
I didn't see
Okay.
that.
Klugman was also, he did a show on NBC years later where he played a doctor. Help me out, chat room. And he was also one of the jurors in a really fantastic old black and white movie called the 12th Man. Jesus, why am I forgetting this? Oscar. He played Oscar Madison in The Odd Couple. But 12 Angry Men was the movie where he played the juror on. I'll send you the link for that. Quincy MD.
Oh, okay, I remember Quincy.
Yeah, he had a beautiful gray toupee for that show. 12 Angry Men. Thank you, Zach. All right, guys, it's time to wrap this up. Any final thoughts you got? Oh, what about the Alfred Hitchcock Presents? You seen any of those?
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't dig those as much. Like I think listening to him, like Rod Serling is just so fucking cool and ominous when he talks. Hitchcock sounds like he would touch kids to me. And then when I hear and they're like, good day or whatever, just so fucking weird to me. And then hearing that like he was desperately trying to fuck that poor woman from the Birds.
Tippi Hedren.
Yeah, like God, he's a piece of shit, man. So I don't know, like maybe it's not fair for me to put that. I can't dig him for some reason though.
Yeah, no, I read a book by Donald Sapoto named The Dark Genius of Alfred Hitchcock, and it really laid out his bizarre proclivities. And yeah, he was retro says Alfred Hitchcock.
Doesn't it sound like he would like be the guy that touched kids, man? For real.
It does. And he had this thing about blondes. He wanted to cast blondes in all of his movies. If you ever watch Vertigo, that's the movie that really gives you an insight into his psyche and the way he thought about women. It's very, very bizarre. He always wanted to mold them the way he wanted and stuff. The whole Tippi Hedren thing, he had basically put her under contract. And after he was fucking with her head and stuff on the Birds, she didn't want to work with him anymore, but he would not release her from the contract. And so she did one more movie called Marnie in hopes that he would then release her afterwards. And he wrote a rape scene in that movie because he was angry that she was always turning him down. And so there's a scene where Sean Connery rapes her. Of course, back then, that you still couldn't show a lot, but he just wanted to fucking fuck with her head. He was an awful person, man.
Didn't he get her hurt during the Birds?
Yeah, because they were like, it was supposed to be a one-day scene, and they were going to throw fake birds at her and also throw a few live birds at her. Well, 3 days of filming, and she was actually being scratched by real birds because they just kept throwing stuff and change the camera, let's do this, no, you need to do that, blah, blah, blah. And it took 3 days, and she was fucking a wreck, a mental wreck, because she knew what he was doing. He just wanted to get back at her because she rebuffed his advances. Sad dude.
Just awful. Yeah, just awful.
Of course, if I was a director, I probably would have done the same thing. Just kidding, everybody. Dan, any final thoughts? Anything you want to get off your chest before we retire for about 22 hours and we're back here with Bare Their Souls?
Yeah, I hope that people of it, and again, this is no shot at Nomad or Dan. It's truly not. But I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this. And it's not to take away from them or to say that they're less than, because they're not. They're equal. And the show tomorrow hopefully will be just as good. But I love our conversational form. Like tonight, you had planned out we were going to talk about those Bears things, whether like hypothetical roster, like, moves and who's going to start. And that was kind of it. And here we are 3.5 hours later. We thought we'll talk some TV. You asked me earlier, was there anything specific I want to talk about? I was like, nah, let's just wing it.
Yeah, that's right. You
and I just think that, like, to me, this is my forte. I just love it. Like, it's conversational. There's no like pounding my chest about I'm smarter than everybody and I'm better than people. And, all these things that like, it's a Shannon Sharp kind of show. It ends up being an alpha male, like who knows more, who's tougher. But with us, it's like people are just listening to us talk on the phone.
Yeah. Well,
that's why I like the show so much.
Yeah, and I like the other show too. I'm with you.
Yeah. Don't I'm let me just stress that. I like the other show. I like everybody we work with. Mm-hmm. I definitely like everyone we work with. I just say I like that this right here is more just us talking, man, and not arguing. And for me, that's my forte.
And I think Cliff makes a good point too. The podcast is easier with fewer people. I definitely agree with that. With Bare Their Souls, we're still trying to find the voice of that show, and Dan has told us, he doesn't like when it turns into Skip Bayless arguing with, who does Skip Bayless argue with now?
Shannon Sharp.
And that's not what he and I initially created, and that's not what he wants the new Bare Their Souls to be.
Not to say that, like, last week's show I thought was really good.
Yeah,
I really did. I had a lot of fun last week. Like I said off air, I was like, man, Nomad was on fucking fire last week. He was, man. I'm not blowing any smoke. Yeah, I'm not blowing any smoke when I say that, man. He was fucking on point last week, man. Not that he's not any other week, but he was really good last week.
Yeah, and he thought greater shows than some,
He thought that he didn't do well last week, and I thought he was fucking great.
He did. Say that.
So I mean, it's ironic, like because we all go through our personal things. I think he was battling his own personal life and didn't think he would, had it last week, but I think he was great, man. So, but yeah, I feel like when we get into those arguments on things like that, it makes me just feel really stressed. And I'm like, dude, I'm 42. Like, I don't know how much time I have left. I'm not being dramatic. Like, I don't want to be unhappy, like, and those conversations always make me unhappy, where you just got to sit there and like argue to the death. Like, I've felt like I've argued my whole life. Like, there's got to be some sunshine on the other side of this motherfucker. That's why if I'm talking to other Bears fans and can't get along, like, who can I get along with?
I hear you. There's nothing wrong with that, man. And those are authentic feelings, and you should be allowed to share them, and that's cool. So we'll.
It's not a shot at anybody else.
I know.
I'm just expressing my appreciation for this show, and what we've done tonight is a big pick me up. Like I said, I've had a tough weekend. With the stuff with my fucking cat, and like I said, don't have fucking heat right now. Just. I feel like I'm hemorrhaging money, the shit with the lady, like all this stuff. Like, and I was pretty down earlier, man. And I feel fucking great right now.
Good.
Just because of us talking, man.
That's all I had to do with my mouth was move it up and down, let words out. I didn't have to suck your dick or anything. So
No, God, no. No, I'm just saying, this show feels like catharsis for me.
yeah.
And that's the best way to explain the difference whenever you're arguing and stuff. There is no catharsis. It feels draining to me. It's like, oh God, even if like you won the argument, you've still been in a fight. This right here feels like, oh my God, I just left a therapy session. Like the world seems like a better place.
Well, I have that influence on people.
Well, you do on me, man. You do on me. That's fucking true.
I used to be that guy where I would spend the night with a woman and then that woman wanted to marry me, you know. But nowadays, I don't have that influence on anyone or anything.
I'll be honest, this is really burying my soul. I'm not trying to whine. I know we're trying to wind it down. As I bare my soul, I feel like it's easy for me to find a lady that, oh, let's watch a movie, let's do this, let's fuck, you know? And that works, but it's like at some point they want to move on. Marilyn Manson has a lyric that really resonates with me. And again, it's not creative per se. I'm sure other people have said it, but in the song, he says, I'm going to fuck you until, hold on, how's it go? Fuck you until somebody better comes along. I'm going to fuck you until somebody, I'm the guy that I'm like the quarterback you signed for 1 year. Like I'm like Andy Dalton a couple years ago, you got 1 year, 10 million. It's like, just come in and fuck me until I get the next guy. You're the stopgap. And the only person I really wasn't the stopgap for was my ex-wife. But again, it didn't work out. But, I'm just saying that is another reason it's to be bummed out about,
Yeah. I used to sing that song to all my ex-wives. And I love them all, and I love you, Dan Aguirre, and I want to let people know that we will be back here tomorrow night at 8 p.m. with Beer. There's Soulz. Maybe I should, since last week's show was so good, maybe I should take another week off. What do you think?
No, you got to be a part of it. I mean, it was a really fun show because all the breaking news that was coming in too. Plus, everybody was really I thought, really delivering, man. Just all of us, man. The other Dan was good too, man. Everybody was good.
Yeah. I like the way Retro puts it about the new show. It's basically a spinoff. You remember those days when you would watch network TV, All in the Family had spinoff shows?
The Ropers.
The Ropers, yes.
Oh, how about George Jefferson? The Jeffersons was a spinoff.
From All in the Family, that's right.
Happy Days had all those spinoffs like Joni and Chachi.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so Bear Their Souls.
Laverne and Shirley.
And some of those spinoffs went on to become bigger hits than those shows that they were.
Andy Griffith. Andy Griffith was on Danny Thomas first.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, the episode, Danny Thomas's daughter. Fuck me. How could she marry Phil Donahue? Oh my God, I would have
Marlo Thomas.
I would have eaten that girl's ass. But yeah, the episode is called Danny Thomas Goes to Mayberry or some shit. And he gets lost in a hick town, and Andy Griffith is the sheriff, and they had such high ratings that they made him his own show after it. Yeah, that's a big spin. I don't like the Andy Griffith show at all, by the way, but I know it's from Danny Thomas, though. Frasier and Cheers.
Frasier and Cheers. That's right. Wasn't there another Cheers spinoff? Didn't they try to do something with Norm? No.
God, I don't know.
Maybe not.
Did you see they brought Night Court back? But yeah. I think in real life, Harry Anderson's dead, and the really hot lady that always battled John Larroquette in court's dead too. Margie Post.
Yeah, Margie Post and Harry Anderson. I think they're both.
And the Richard Mall, the guy that played Bull, they don't even have him on there for some reason.
Yeah, that's weird.
He's still alive too.
I worked with John Larroquette on a project once, and I actually didn't get to see him. I had him voice over a track of ours, and he lived in Idaho at the time, and so we just communicated with him over phone lines. But it took an hour to do the track, and so we break and talk a little bit and talk about his career. He's a super nice guy. And I asked him, "Why are you fucking living in Idaho?" He goes, "It's a great place. A lot of Hollywood celebrities are here. Blah 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 blah." But now apparently people are leaving because the politics there have gotten so contentious that people are just saying, "Get the fuck out."
Hey, real quick, John Larroquette did the voiceover in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original one.
Really?
At the very beginning, yeah, he does the voiceover, and he said he got paid in pot. He didn't get any money. They gave him a bag of weed to do the read.
I wonder
And they brought him back. They did a really shitty sequel, like recently on Netflix or something. And they brought him back to do that. He did the read on that too, like to commemorate like the 50th anniversary or whatever it was.
Wow. Look what Cliff says. He says that his wife loves the new Night Court. The new judge is Harry's screen daughter. She's the woman from the Big Bang Theory.
She was in that show when John Ritter died.
Gotcha. I didn't know
right?
that.
What was it? 8 Simple Rules. She's the one that later went on to play the one that all the nerds on Big Bang Theory liked.
Wow. Melissa Rauch is her name.
Oh, okay, that's a different woman. That I thought he meant the Penny lady or whatever her name is.
Lots of good stuff. We could stay here another hour, but I got a lot of shit to do early in the morning. And what's Zach saying? Golden Girls?
Yeah, Golden Palace, which had Don Cheadle and Cheech Marin.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Cheech is the fucking cook. It's got all the girls in it except Dorothy, but she played in 2 episodes, though. I saw there was only 1 season of Golden Palace. I watched it with my grandma, though.
Outstanding stuff. This has been a lot of fun for me too, Dan Aguirre. I will talk to you tomorrow. I'll be texting you between then and now. Make sure you watch Beneath the Valley of the Ultra-Visions.
Who's the guy there?
He's a no name.
Santucci. It looks like Santucci.
It does.
It's John.
He's a no-name actor. And
don't say that about John. He's a name actor.
I tell you the plot, but it doesn't matter. It's the tits that matter. That is it. I got to tell you a quick story. I think I've shared this story on the show. So the night the movie premiered, I went to the premiere, and it was a packed house, the Three Penny Cinema on Lincoln Avenue, right across the street from the Biograph. And there was Roger Ebert next to a beautiful woman who I don't think was he later married an African American woman, but he was there with a lady that I think was his date. I don't think this woman was his wife. And so he was there, a lot of other Gene Siskel, a lot of other important people in Chicago were there. And then after the movie screen, here comes fucking Russ Meyer himself. And maybe I'll talk about this tomorrow because it's kind of a long story, but this guy was a raconteur. He made his name with pinup photography, shooting girls in lingerie and stockings during the 1940s and 50s. And then he bought a movie camera and decided to shoot these girly pictures and book them into theaters at the time when they were just allowing some titillating movies to come out. And then finally he came out with these big titty movies, and that made him a big star. There's been talk about doing a Hollywood movie about his life. And I would love to see it because the guy led a fascinating life, surrounded by all those big tits. That's fascinating to me anyway.
Yeah.
All right. With that, final word is yours, Dan. Say it, and then I'll roll the credits.
Weird fun fact. They closed our theater, our AMC theater. So we've got this small theater that was around in the 50s that they have reconstructed as a result. It only has 2 screens. But there's a Little Richard movie coming out, and allegedly it's only hitting 50 screens in America, and it's going to this little theater that we have.
Oh, wow. That's not the theater that you said your neighborhood theater was being closed, is it?
No. That's what I'm saying. It closed down. The AMC one closed.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
As a result, they refurnished this old one from like the 50s that only has 2 screens. It's called the Granada. Okay. And it's getting this I don't like Little Richard, but it's getting this Little Richard movie. And according to the newspaper, it's only hitting 50 screens in America, but it's getting in my town.
Wow, how cool is that?
That is cool, man. I almost want to see the movie as a result, but I don't know.
When is that happening?
Maybe this weekend.
I was going to fly in, but
That's all right.
all right, my friend. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right, man. Be well.
Goodbye, everybody.